budget workshop to order on this date of October 20th, 2021, 6:06 p.m. I'm looking forward to staff presentation of the plan, the budget, proposed annual budget. And I know you put tons of hours into this, Juliana and staff. I appreciate all that time. I have my sticky note, I have my pen, and I have my 400, God knows how many pages.
That would be 464 pages.
Yes, that is. If I had a horse, I'd choke him. Never mind. Thank you.
Are we ready? Okay. Well, good evening. This evening, we will continue with the review and presentation of the fiscal year 2020 budget. I'd like to begin by thanking the budget team. Everyone at the village has a part in development of this, as we said, 464-page document. I'd like to thank you all for your time in reviewing this and making the difficult decisions that are before you. The boards and commissions that have helped review and set some direction for their areas, as well as all of the department heads, their staff, Director Navarrete, Deputy Village Manager Webb, Executive Assistant Sue Krauser, and everyone, the public and everyone who has had a role in giving input for this document. So we will go through as much as we can get through this evening. We have a continued, and maybe we can put the first slide on process up. Is that me here? Ah, there we go. And we will get through as much today, and then we will have another budget workshop prior to the board meeting tomorrow. And the hope is between the two meetings, we will get through everything except for community contributions. And community contributions will then be discussed on November 4th, because we are, the requests and the data that the board always reviews is coming in slower than expected. And so we are going to wait until we have all of that information gathered before we discuss it. So this, as you know, the 2018 strategic plan expired, and we are in the process of creating a new strategic plan. We believe that process will take us into fiscal year 2022. We've done our best to continue with the vision of the board in our goal setting, as well as the budget requests and expenditures that are in this budget. So we've continued. I don't think we're going to be far off the goals that are set in the next strategic plan, but there's always the mechanisms to make adjustments if necessary. The process included a comprehensive review of the existing programs and services. I had several meetings with department heads. Most of the departments met with me twice to go through their requests and then to review the adjustments that I made to their requests. We reviewed all the committee and commission budget requests with the liaisons of those boards and commissions, and those will be discussed this evening. When we get to the department highlights, each department head will address also the boards and commissions that fall under their purview. We compiled this budget. This is my recommended budget. I'm required to provide you with a recommended balanced budget and then for your review, and so that's what you have before you this evening. We did do the capital budget presentation to the board on September 22nd, and as I mentioned, we will have, in addition to this evening, a workshop tomorrow and then on November 4th if necessary. This budget is balanced. It's based on the strategic plan. It continues the focus on diversifying revenues to reduce the reliance on property tax. Several years ago, the board set a goal of 30%. No more than 30% of our revenues should come from property taxes. This budget includes 27.01% property tax revenue to balance that budget. There is no property tax increase proposed as part of this budget. The current service levels have been all have been maintained. Our fund balance policy has been met for the general fund. We have the goal of 40% fund balance. This fund balance for this budget is projected to be 50.47% at the end of 2022. This is the 6th year that there is no property tax increase in an effort to promote a decrease in rate. Each year we've compared the EAV and the property tax rate so that, and it's part of your budget book, and it reflects a downward trend, although the last few years has been very slight. And so we've been very hesitant to increase property taxes while that rate is still low, or not as low as we had hoped. So remember, we have both a Dupage County and a Cook County rate, and then those are blended together for our overall rate. And Remy will walk through that with you later on this evening. And in that regard, this budget also includes efforts to increase our EAV, and you'll see that through community development and the infrastructure improvements, as well as the TIF budgets and what they're proposing to try to increase the EAV in the community. What does this budget include? This budget includes all essential services being maintained. It's balanced. It meets our general fund balance policy. It includes community support at the same level that we've provided support in previous years, and again, that will be a topic of discussion for the April 4th meeting. We have included special events and some enhancements of those special events. Funding for capital, which was reviewed with you previously. Contractual services for village beautification and appearance. This had been one of the major goals of the previous strategic plan, and we continue to try to meet that goal in various ways. This year includes 2 new full-time positions. We've tried not to increase staffing over the years. This year we have 1 new position in public works and forestry, and TJ will talk about that position and what that position will do and its need for that addition. And we have a property evidence custodian in the police department. Again, the police chief, Chief Minot, will address that. I will note that there were also the elimination of 2 part-time records aides in the police department. So we had 2 vacant positions, and we eliminated them from this proposed budget. The process this evening is Remy will walk through the revenues, overall expenditures, and then we will do highlights from each of the department heads. They will explain where their budget is in comparison to last year's budgeted amount, the percentage change, and any highlights that would reflect why that is. We will also, the intent is not to re-present the capital budget requests, but when they come up, if you have had a question about a capital project that you thought of since the last time we had that discussion, please feel free to raise it and they can address it at that time. And then Remy will come back to discuss the overall general fund wrap-up, as well as review quickly the other funds. So I will sit down and let Remy come up. And throughout the process, please ask questions. So I'd rather answer them as the department head is up here. I'd be happy to answer any questions as well. And you may find that I interject myself into the discussion as we go along.
I don't see anyone from the public. And normally we would, at the beginning of our meeting, have a public comment, but there's no one here. I guess we'll move on. If we can keep that in our agendas for the future.
Good evening. So right now, you're seeing the total projected general fund revenues. We have $44,211,311 at 11.87% increase over the last year's budget. The revenue includes property tax, which is 0% increase. Sales and use tax is stable. Home rule sales tax is also stable, so as the income tax. Utility tax is decreasing. I will explain that to you when we get to the revenue detail. Other revenues are remain relatively flat. Again, property tax, we are requesting a 0% property tax increase. Our water and sewer rate, no increase is proposed for 7 years in a row, but we are proposing a service charge or infrastructure fee increase from $12.50 per month to $25 per month. That will give us a $1,571,400 additional revenues in water and sewer fund, if approved.
Can you explain what a 1% property tax increase is based on?
When we get to the presentation of the property tax, we'll have that information. Another proposal is the proposed post tax. If this approved, a person participated in playing video gaming terminal that takes place in the jurisdictional boundaries of the village, the rate shall be 1 cent per play. If this approved, we're gonna have an extra revenue of $130,000. Revenue summary. If you go to your budget book on page 104 to 105, you will see all the detailed revenue. This is just the summary of all the revenues in general fund. Property tax, real estate, a budget of $11,945,696. It's a decrease of $1,200. I will explain this to you, what the decrease is, when we got to the property tax detail. Telecommunication tax, natural gas tax, and electric tax, those are the utility tax. For telecommunication, we have a decrease of $25,000. This particular revenue continued to decrease because a lot of residents doesn't have any more landlines. Right now, everybody has a cell phone with unlimited data, so we're not getting any taxes back.
Is there any opportunity to tax what's moved from landline to cell phone?
No, those are not being taxed right now because they are all free. It's part of the package. It's like the telephone, the text message.
So,
But it's actually just you have a fixed rate. So before on the landline, they're basing it based on uses like the minutes or an hour. But this time you have an unlimited data, so you're just paying a fixed amount. So that's all that they're paying for it.
right. So that comes to the municipality?
Yes. But not as, if you look up the history, it's going down. In 2018, we have like $500,000 of revenue, and then in 2020, we only got $360, and gonna continues to go down based on that. Natural gas tax, it's gonna decrease by $19,000. Again, the increase is based on the temperature fluctuation. Same thing as the electric tax. This is based on the temperature, if it is gonna be hot or cold during the summer or winter time. Next is the sales tax. We're increased in 2022 by $1.8 million. Use tax, it's remained the same as $1.3 million, same what it was budgeted in 2021. Use tax is a merchandise that you purchased that you use in Illinois that did not collect an Illinois tax. For example, you purchased this merchandise through catalogs, internet, infomercial. So those are the use tax that we're talking about here. Home rule sales tax, we increased it by $1.9 million in 2022. If the board recall, on July 1st of 2021, we increased our home rule sales tax by 0.25%. So we're 0.075, now we're 1%, effective July 1st.
So that increase is due primarily to our increase in the rate, not in increase in revenue?
It is also both, increase in revenues and also increase in rate. We anticipated when we increased the rate in July that we're gonna get an extra $900,000 in 2021, based on that 6 months period that we increased.
And what do we collect?
Well, right now, they're 3 months behind, so I'm not getting that information yet. But it's increased drastically right now, because compared to last year, we already got an extra $500,000 compared to last year's revenue collected. Real estate transfer stamp, we budgeted $400,000. That's a $5,000 increase from 2021. This is the when property was sold, or that's based on $3 per thousand on the sales of the property. Hotel and motel tax, we leave the same amount of budgeted of $44,500 compared to 2021. Prepared food tax, this is the 3% of food and beverage tax that we charge. It's an increase of $100,000 compared to the 2021 budget. The cannabis use tax, this is a new tax in 2020. For the 2022 budget, we increased it by $20,000. The purpose of this cannabis use tax is to use for the crime prevention program training for the police department. As you can see, the video gaming tax now, there's a line item in general fund. Usually the video gaming tax, it was in the MWRD fund. Since that particular MWRD or our improvement project will end soon, so we decided, the staff recommend to bring back the video gaming tax to general fund. So we budgeted for $195,000.
Is there any way that we can know what the video gaming tax was for previous years, even though it was in the MWRD fund?
Sure.
As a comparison?
MWRD should be on page 307 to 309 of the budget book. So the video gaming tax in 2018 is $181,852. In 2019 is $202,271. And in 2020 is $115,561 because of COVID, that the Illinois gambling kind of like closed it out for a period of probably 6 to 7 months.
So it dropped quite a bit, didn't it? But it's coming back.
It's coming back, yes. Auto rental is the same budget as the 2021 of $10,000. Personal property.
I'm sorry, I got lost now. I switched over to 309. Can you give me the page to get back to where we were?
104 to 105.
Thank you.
Next is the personal property replacement tax. And by the way, the detail of all the explanation for all this revenue can also be found on page 28 to 31. And if you have more data history, you can also find that in page 67 and 76 of the budget book. Personal property replacement tax. This tax is to replace money lost by the local government when their power to impose personal property tax to corporation partnership and other businesses were taken away. So they replace it with this PPRT. So we budgeted for $90,000, that's a $7,000 increase for 2022. A state income tax. We budgeted $4,300,000 That's a $500,000 increase compared to 2021. We are getting a 6.06% that's being allocated to all local government of the state income tax. And the distribution is based on per capita income.
That's LGDF.
Yes. Next is the federal grant of $146,000. This is the Fema grant that related to the COVID-19 expense reimbursement for the 2020. Until now, we didn't get any revenue yet, so we're thinking that we should get it in 2022. Other government grant is $2,220. This is an earmark grant for the EMS binder lip bariatric lifting. That's for the Chip Force, please.
Yeah, it's part of a training program that includes some training and some equipment to help bariatric patients to lift safer for our people and better for the patient care.
Thank you. Next is the Dupage City Mowing reimbursement. It's always going to be the same budgeted as it is. It's $16,910. The Elias reimbursement, budgeted at $450, is the same as 2021 budget. Police program, budgeted at $25,000, is the same as 2021. These are the programs that we get a grant for example, like the Sustained Traffic Enforcement Program, like the DUI or the click it or ticket kind of program. Expenditure fire is $15,000. It's a decrease of $10,000 compared to the 2021 budget. Business license increased by $12,000. This is because of the proposed tobacco license increase from $100 to $500 effective in 2022. Liquor license increased by $2,000 compared to 2021 budget. Contractual license remained the same of $40,000. Vendor solicitor license, it's $300 budgeted for 2022.
Remy, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
For contractor licenses, how does that number remain consistent over those different years? When I'm sure there's not a consistent number of applications for the licenses, but that number is the same. So how does that work out? It was 40,000.
They have to get it annually, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
so
annual license.
so my guess would be is we have about the same number of contractors working in town. It's not based on the cost of the projects. It's
Right.
just a flat contract
Correct.
license fee.
Right, this is just the license fee. That's different from the building permits.
So this is the license fee.
This
So
is the license
that
fee.
means
So
that we just had the same number,
Correct.
the same number of contractors in town.
Right.
So that number doesn't fluctuate.
doesn't
And we
fluc-
haven't changed that fee
It's been the same.
recently.
Okay.
It's being renewed every year, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Annual.
It's like our ambulance support fee from across the street, Amita, something else, right?
What was that question?
Don't we have regular fees from, we support it from the, like across the street when we haul people? That's
That's,
not this one?
right, what you're pertaining to, Mayor, is more so speaking towards those service fees on a per-use kind of basis. This is a licensing fee that's given, needed from a contractor to do work in our town that we register with them. It's renewed annually, but to Trustee Porter's point, it is somewhat the same. It's been flat. We've had the same average number or very close to number of different contractors. So those would just be either the same people doing work, or if, you know, a new contractor comes in, essentially the same amount of work is being completed.
Okay.
Okay. I was confusing it with something else.
Okay, next is the animal license. The staff is recommending to eliminate this pet license renewal effective 2022. We are not making any money. We're spending the tag for almost.
What is the animal license? I didn't even know we had one.
Do you have a dog?
I've had dogs, I don't know now. But I can guarantee you, I didn't pay any license fees for my dog.
Therein lies the problem, so we're gonna get rid of it.
Is that the $5 license fee?
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the issues, this is one of, we have a bunch of tags that we have to throw away each year and then buy new ones because,
And what's the point of that license? Why do we do that?
I think at one point, wasn't it to,
Just to help track lost dogs. If
They have tags
But
in
now
their
we've got
skin.
microchip and a lot of other stuff. that we-
Yeah, we have microchips and,
We wanted to make sure they were getting the dogs were getting their rabies shots and whatnot.
But
I
that's
think
a
it
county-
also
that's a
helped
county
flag
thing.
a house that might have too many pets in it, but then again, somebody who would
Nope.
go over the edge would
Probably
not come
not
in and
telling
get
you
their
about it.
permit. So,
nope.
Okay, thank you.
I like that idea of eliminating.
Do you like getting rid of it?
Yep.
Next is the penalty on license. It's an increase of $10,000 compared to the 2021. These penalties, this relates to the business license, those business license that didn't pay on time, so they're getting penalized every month. And so as the rental license, also it's part of, on this revenue. Multifamily license increased by $3,500 compared to 2021. These are yearly renewal. Single-family rental license decreased by $30,000. These are renewed every 2 years. The decrease is because of the budgeting errors. Police department, they included the penalties on single on the single family license account instead of putting it to the penalty account. So we just corrected it in 2022.
Check
The
wrong box.
decrease on the single family rental compared to the 2021 of $30,000 is the police department kind of like combined the penalty and the actual license in one budget. They put it all in the single family budget instead of separating it and put the penalty on the correct account number. They just put lump sum it in the single family license.
So does that mean that that on our books, it showed that we had
No, we
accrued more than we actually had?
Yes, in penalty, we put it correctly where it's supposed to be in penalty. But on the budget, when they presented the budget, for example, in 2022, they put 115. That's part of the single, it's a single family renewal plus the penalty.
but somebody wasn't charged twice.
But we're charging it correctly in the account, but not on the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next is the building permits, an increase of $45,000 compared to the 2021. So we're expecting some construction gonna happen in 2022. So that's why it was increased by $45,000. Sign permits, a decrease of $200 compared to the 2021 budget. Again, the video gaming terminal permits, this was also in the MWRD fund, and we're suggesting to move it back to the general fund. It's also increased because we are also proposing to increase the terminal license from 1,000 to 1,500 each terminal. Campbell.
We're increasing the licenses by 50%?
No, from
By-
1,000 to 1,500. We're increasing it by $500 per terminal.
Are they aware of that?
We have to
That
create the
jump?
ordinance first to do it. It's gonna be under 2022.
The business? Oh.
So my understanding is that, and Christie, correct me if I'm wrong, The first 5 were at 1,000, and the 6th one, when they created the 6th license, was at 1,500. So what our recommendation is to go now in the next year, make them all 1,500 the same.
Correct, and they're bringing in a lot of revenue. Yeah,
Everybody was told.
they're doing great.
Thank you.
Next is the cable franchise fee of $350,000 is the same budget amount for 2021. Next one is the solid waste franchise fee, an increase of $9,500 compared to the 2021 budget. Ambulance fee is the same budgeted amount in 2021 of $900,000. A mobilization fee, this is a new revenue that was just implemented, created in 2021. If the board remember barnacles, when violators already exceeded 2 or 3 tickets, then they are considered to be to be barnacle. So if they got barnacle, they have to pay the amount that they owe, all the tickets, due tickets, and then they're gonna end up paying $100 barnacle fees to the village, and that $100 will be split to the barnacles and to the village. So village actually only get $50, and the other $50 goes to barnacles. But it's still an extra revenue that the village can have.
Seems to be working.
Yes. Next is the ground emergency medical transport. This is a new revenue in 2021. The emergency medical transport is a volunteer program that allows public-owned or operated emergency ground ambulance transportation, provides to receive supplemental payment that covers the difference between a provider's actual cost per GMT transport and the Medicaid-based payment, mileage, and other source of reimbursement for the ambulance.
So what are we implementing here?
Go ahead, you want to explain it?
Yeah, this is new, the last 2 years. We've applied since 2019. The program began in the fall of 2019. We only started to receive revenues because they've been in the rear from actually sending them out. What GEMT is, it's a pass-through funding from the federal government that supplements our cost of service, which is actually calculated as our true cost of service versus what we do get paid and reimbursed for a Medicaid patient. So the state has managed care organizations that care and bundle the payments for health care for Medicaid patients in Illinois. And for everybody that we transport, we get the difference between what that traditional bundled care fee is, which is very low, compared to our true cost. Every year I have to calculate and we build out what the true cost and separate our budget based on what we pay for actually a cost to use an ambulance. That cost is around $2,000 per patient, and we actually get reimbursed at less than $500 per patient. So the federal government has a funding source that is passed through the state that we get reimbursed, and of that reimbursement, we give 50% back to the state, and we keep 50%. It only has begun in 2019, and it's based on how many patients that are Medicaid that we transport and care for every year.
This only relative to Medicare.
Medicaid. Medicaid patients only, yep.
And the state keeps half and they do nothing.
For administrative costs, and then it's also funds another, I think, other programs through Health and Family Services for private ambulances, and that's what we've been told. But I don't know exactly where those dollars go.
Well, I'm glad the feds are acknowledging that there's a gap there. Okay.
But it's an extra revenue that we can have. And on this revenue, we already calculated the 50% out of that we're supposed to give to the Secretary of State. Plan review engineering fees increased by $1,000. Plan review inspection service fees increased by $5,000. Building reinspection fee decreased by $200. The vehicle impound fees is the same budgeted amount as of 2021 of $450,000.
So does that mean that's almost $500,000. Does that mean we're impounding a lot of vehicles?
If you look up the history, in 2018, we got 588,000. In 2019, we have 442. But in 2020, because of COVID, we didn't get much. And I think that's why we always keep the 450.
But does that translate to, does that mean that we're impounding? Like, I guess I'm trying to understand, like, how many vehicles that is, maybe on like a monthly basis or like an annual basis? Like, do we have a general number?
Or what's the fee for it? You know, how
It's,
much-
it's for $500
$500
fee.
a
So I guess
fee.
if you divide 450 by 500, it gives you a rough number. I don't have that.
500 per vehicle?
500 per vehicle, yes.
How does that work with the immobilization fee, and then there's the vehicle impoundment fee? How do those two coincide or together? Because I see that we had $2,400 in immobilization fee and then vehicle impoundment. So what's the difference in the two categories?
So the vehicle impoundment program, that is if an officer pulls somebody over and arrests them for, there's a number of charges. There's about 8 or 9 charges that qualify to have their vehicle impounded. Most common ones are DUI, driving with a revoked license, suspended license, UUW, using a vehicle, certain crimes that you use your vehicle. The police department impounds your vehicle on the spot. So this doesn't have to do with delinquent tickets or the towing.
Oh, okay, because I thought I heard someone say something about Barnacle when we were going through that vehicle impoundment explanation. I thought they mentioned Barnacle.
That was an
which-
Immobilization.
fee. Not an, so there's impoundment and immobilization. The Barnacle immobilizes your vehicle due to unpaid tickets. The impoundment fee, the police department impounds your vehicle if
I
you
get
use
it,
it for
yeah.
certain crimes.
Yeah, I get the difference. I just got confused on the terminology as it was being discussed.
Sure.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Go on.
Next is the CPR fee, an increase of $600 compared to the 2021 budget. The ADT administrative fee is the same as the 2021 budget of $6,900.
Help me
We-
out. What's a CPR fee?
That's revenue based on course fees that we collect to have for registrations for CPR class, when we teach CPR.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Next is public safety application fee. It's a decrease of $500. We don't have budgeted for 2022. Next is the overweight vehicle fee of $7,500. It's the same budgeted amount in 2021. Same thing as the foreclosure registration fee of $70,000. Same budget as 2021.
Can
Foreclosure.
I ask, how did we, I don't want to get too far off the track, but how did we do with that recent inspection that we did on Lake Street when we were weighing vehicles? I know we had an inspection that was going on maybe a week or so ago, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
We did so well that state police wants to do another one this week. Unfortunately, we took 5 trucks out of service that were operating illegally and dangerously, as well as 4 drivers who, for various offenses, whether they were revoked, not licensed to drive that truck. Unfortunately, we had quite a bit of activity and arrests and citations come out of it, which we don't want, obviously, right? We want Lake Street to be safe. We get a lot of trucks that pass by there on a daily basis, a lot of heavy trucks. So we're looking at probably doing another one in the near future to try and keep these trucks out of our town or curb their behavior.
Next time, I'll pay attention to the alert and avoid Lake Street when you're doing that.
That's a bad drawback.
Because you did give us a heads up, but I had no idea, so I got caught in that eastbound traffic, but.
It did back up, didn't
Yeah.
it?
Okay.
Do we have any idea what kind of revenue we pulled out of that initiative?
Somewhere, I want to say it was in the area of maybe 8,000 or 9,000, somewhere around there.
For 5 trucks?
Yeah, it's significant fines for running a truck overweight. And if you're not qualified, if that truck can't handle the weight, can't stop properly, there are significant fines.
And, sorry, just to clarify, so every truck that passed that, it was at the intersection, right?
Leading up, right in front of the metro station.
So every truck that passed by, our police department stopped them?
Correct.
On that.
And how many in total did we stop?
I don't
Rough.
have that number.
Okay.
But I would guess, I'll estimate
The
maybe
state
there
police
is
drove that, right? I
50
mean,
to 75.
it was the
50 to
state police that
75.
set that up, and
We do it together. It's a partnership between both of us.
So out of the 50 to 75, 5 were, I don't know.
Overweight.
Well, yeah, I just gave you the ones that we took out of service and overweight, but there's other various violations
can
that
get
they were
them.
cited and released.
You can send that to me.
Yeah, I can get more data if you want. I can send it
Okay.
out.
Thank you.
they got a ton of data on that.
That's very interesting.
Thank you, Remy.
No
It's-
problem.
It's good not, to
Thank you.
keep them light so they don't bust up our roads.
Okay.
Break up our roads, probably a better way.
Next is the foreclosure registration fee. This is the fee, it's for the default mortgage or vacant property. We charge like $400 for each vacant property on a yearly basis. It's a renewal.
$400 or how much?
$400. It should be, it's $500. The $100 goes to the company to actually do the mailing and the calling, and the $400 goes to the village.
So, Remy, how have we treated this in this COVID-19 era? Because when I think about foreclosure, I think about many people that haven't been able to make their
I think when if it is foreclosure, that means it's gonna go back to the bank, and the bank's supposed to maintain that property. So that's kind of like what that company is going through, is to send that, that bills to the bank who owns the property after it was foreclosed.
But the village itself isn't giving said bills to our residents, we're just primarily dealing with bank, is that what you're saying?
This was a cause and effect initiative where a home would go into foreclosure, families had already moved out.
Right.
And the banks weren't taking care of the property.
Yeah, this is only just for the vacant property. There's some foreclosure that they still lives there, so we don't touch that. Only when there's nobody lives in the property, that's
This is
where
only-
it's vacant.
Only for vacant.
Only for
Okay.
vacant, yes.
So is this a new fee, Remy? Just started 2019, there is no data for 2018?
Yes, it started in 2019.
It's a good amount.
Yeah, the banks became responsive, right, chief?
Yeah, that, and it requires them to give contact info also, so middle of the night we can call them.
Next is printed material, budgeted of $7,000, same as the 2021 budget. Rental income, an increase of $8,394. These are the water tower antenna that you see on a water tower equipment. Next is traffic fines, Cook, decrease of $5,000. Traffic fines in Dupage, an increase of $20,000. Ordinance violation is the same budgeted amount of $502,000 of 2021. Police false alarm.
Sorry to pause you.
Sure.
Ordinance violations is through our police department
Yes,
uh,
and inspectional.
and inspectional? Is there any way we could have a breakdown of those violations? Just like the categories? Like maybe at a later date?
I know there's like a C and a P ticket, but we can try to look it up. I know there's a distinction between the two.
Does, is P for parking?
It's P for parking and C is for compliance,
So that's how we
which
break
is
it down?
that's how we break it down.
Okay. Could we have, at a later date, some sort of data on that?
We will send you
Okay.
guys the information.
So you're saying based on category?
Yeah, if it's
Yeah.
just two categories. You're saying it's just
Yeah.
two categories, yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Again, police false alarm decreased by $4,000. Fire false alarm decreased by $2,000. Red light camera is the same budgeted amount as the 2021. We only have one, that's in Lake and Barrington, or Lake and County Farm.
Okay. And with the red light camera, I'm thinking about all the scandals that rocked the red light camera program in Illinois last year, and I think this year as well. Have we reviewed our program? Are we totally in compliance? There's no issues? Because it was a huge problem in Illinois.
We're not in the newspaper yet, so I think we're doing great. Yes, I think the police department, they do review the violation before, because they're the one who's gonna make a decision if that particular violation, it's really a violation or it was just like a, you know. they
What's our
mistook it.
company, chief?
Cancel, thank you.
Gatso is our company. They've had clean records in communities that have red light cameras.
Can you say it again?
Pardon me?
Gatso.
Gatso,
Like GATSO?
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And they've been clean as a whistle. We have not accepted any buybacks or whatever,
Okay.
you know, like you've seen reported in some communities. I was the only mayor that went and spoke before the Transportation Committee in the state, just for a little background, because we have such a dangerous corner at Barrington and Lake Street. You know, we got the two bridges on the other side, and you pull somebody over and you're hidden from view pretty much, so it's very dangerous. And the chairman of that committee, he really drilled me all over the place, because he didn't think thought I was joking, but I had all my data together. And it was about keeping the officers from trying to guard a very dangerous intersection, keep them in the communities circulating. The red light camera helped that. And we set up a program with GATSO, just for background, that is quite liberal. In other words, if you don't come to a complete stop on a right-hand turn, you're okay. We give a 20-mile-an-hour rule, that if you slow down, you're under 20 miles an hour, you can see. And so we have that, and we have, I can never remember, front bumper, back bumper, on running a red light. We're liberal on that also. So you can see, we collect in the $100,000 range. Schaumburg, in one day, collected $1 million when they first implemented it. Very strict rules.
Thank
Remy,
you.
I was just wondering, most of the budget for 2020 is aligned with previous years. Is there a high-level overview do you want to give, or is this line by line? Is there a particular reason that you're going line by line?
I have
I'm
to
just
go-
asking. I don't know if it's aligned already from previous years, if it's really high-level overview that you want to give.
I can
maybe
just,
if there is a difference that you want to talk about.
I can just mention the difference if there's a
If
difference
there is
from
something
last
standing
year's to
out,
this
so
year's. Yes,
something that's
I can
changing,
do
I think
that.
that's better for.
Yeah, I think that Remy's doing this for those of you who have not been through the budget process before and maybe
But-
don't know the background of what the revenue stands for.
We'll
I mean,
figure out.
it's up to the board on how much detail. We
That's
do
what I
not,
think, so.
I think it's a great suggestion offered by,
It's particularly, all of them are in line with previous years. It's just, if something stands out, we'll ask a question, but I don't see a particular reason,
No.
unless there is, that I'm missing it.
I have a
No,
question.
I understand. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
What are kennel fees?
what are what?
Kennel
fees.
Kennel fees is when we have the dog in our possession and we have to put them in a kennel. If they're gonna stay for overnight, then we have to charge the owner kennel fees.
That's for housing our dogs here at the village, if we have to house them for an extended period of time.
And if that dog doesn't get picked up,
They go to one of the kennels, either in Dupage or Cook County.
who pays the kennel fees then?
We would absorb the kennel fees, we won't charge for those.
Okay.
Unless we could find the owner and they've abandoned the dog in addition, then we'll go after them.
Thank you. Just
By the way,
going
we've
back
been
to-
pretty good at finding owners with our Facebook, putting the dogs up.
Yeah, usually we can locate the owners.
Yeah, I've gotten
One
great
more
comments.
real question, one real fast question. With the red light camera, do you review those, or does the company review those tickets?
The company reviews the tickets, and if it's a close call, they will then send it to the police department, who will take a look at the close ones and make the determination.
Thank you.
Sure.
And just going back to what we were saying before, I'm very appreciative of the line by line, but I do like trustee Husseini's suggestion about just highlighting any differences. But I understand that it's because, we're new, so I thank you for that.
Okay. Next is the interest investment income. It's a decrease of 260,500. As you guys all know, the rate right now is really pathetic. Compared to the 2020 or 2019, we have like, 3%, 2.5%. Now it's 0.002. So it's
Do we ask banks, like even I saw last time, I don't have document in front of me, but the operating account had like $12 million in there at Wintrust, and there was zero interest on that. There are checking accounts, there are operating accounts that give interest. There's some interest, but this was zero interest. So is there a particular reason? Did we not ask, or? It's
We
12
did
million,
ask.
that's it.
I always ask. I'm kind of like I threaten them anyway to take my money out.
Before I left the bank, I know they had that product. I don't know if they don't have it right now.
They don't
but-
have it right now because they
Okay.
said that, this is what they can only provide us. Sometimes they will bend a little bit,
Yeah.
but not as much as
So
as
do we
before.
set a bid out, or do we look at other banks, or are we just committed to one bank?
We are searching for others that we can invest our money,
knew-
but municipalities, there's just
Yeah.
restricted that you can only invest with a certain, like
Is there a certain way
CDs.
of
So our-
doing this
our
in a bidding
banking-
way?
Our banking agreement comes up for renewal in 2022,
Correct.
and
Oh,
so we'll,
excellent.
yes, so we will
Excellent.
be, that will be one of the
I
reviews.
knew, when I was in retail, I know we used to bid on these things, and then we used to win. I don't know how it works, but Juliana, you probably
Right.
know better, or you know better.
Right,
Remy,
it's
but
gonna
That's good, it's
expire.
about time. You know what, we realized that
Right.
the interest income went significantly down.
Right.
It's opportunity to look
Yeah.
into that.
Our
Okay.
banking services were expired in June of 2022, so we're gonna have an RFP gonna go on the second quarter of 2022.
It's also been added to the Dupage mayors and managers discussion list for next month, because a lot of communities were part of IMET, which was a pool, and they've, but there aren't really any other sources out there to come together and try to find investment opportunities for villages, so we're gonna have that discussion. Other communities are experiencing the same
Experiencing
thing.
the same thing, yeah.
Are other communities abandoning IMET like we did?
There's some that still invest in it and some that don't.
We're not in it at all, right?
We, I
We
think we
are
have
in a
a slight, we had
convenience fee.
left a slight amount in there.
But I heard that they've paid out the last that anybody would get.
That is correct. That was in an update, we got our last payment. for
Correct. And so we were only staying there to make sure that any dollars that they would pay out, we'd get. But after that, I'm at mess. I'd still recommend we get out of there. And discuss it with our banker.
Okay, so,
I'm not happy with
that's
it.
all the revenues, so if you want to move on.
Okay, I still have a few.
I
can we
think they
just-
would like the I mean, is there
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah, there's
Have
like,
a-
there's the renewable green energy, this is a new revenue that we
Okay.
have.
That's the one I wanted to ask.
In 2021, that just the board approved, like a few board meetings ago. It's a $50,000 increase, budgeted for 2022.
What's
so-
389 loan interest that goes from 7,551 to 289?
Which one?
Loan interest SSA number 6, special service area number 6, Dupage M&M, 7551 all the way down to 289.
Right,
And then gone.
because
What
the
is that?
SSA number 6, if you guys recall, on the 2020 budget, that the SSA number 6 is, they already paid the amount that they owe to the general fund.
Oh, okay.
So that's why if you see 2021 and 2022, there's no
Okay.
more, because they already paid. And we don't levy anything in SSA number 6 because they're done. Expenditure miscellaneous is a $45,000 decrease compared to the 2021. The revenue that we receive in here, they're not a regular revenue. So it's just kind of like any revenue that, this is where we put the revenue that we don't know where to put in. Some of them are like the court reporting fees for whenever that there's like a hearing for the liquor and the food and beverage tax, the donation, And these are also where we put the IRMA checks for claim reimbursement when we have some accident with our vehicles. And this is where also we put the lawn cut fees whenever there's like a 6 feet tall of grass. This is where we put that bills. Next is the corporate partnership program. It's a decrease of $2,500. This is the an account where we are actually for the special events like the sponsors. This is where we're gonna put those money in. Central equipment, water and sewer. These are a decrease of $48,799. These are for the maintenance of vehicle equipment for water and sewer. So that's it for the revenue summary. As you can see at on the screen, our reliance on property tax is only 27.01% compared to because we have a goal that we have to at least have 30%, but we exceeded that. Now it's only 27.01%.
I will ask a last question within the revenues. Building permit revenue only for Cook County, it seems like there's a fluctuation between the projection for 2021 and the actual budget and what the budget for 2022 is. So is there something that happened in 2021, the projections went up, or?
It really should say Cook and DuPage. I think it got cut off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's a combination of the two.
Oh, it's a
It is
combination
both
of-
Cook and DuPage.
So the projection is 520 or something, and then budget was 260, so it's a double. It's just doubling it because two counties?
Right.
That's what's happening?
And
No,
because
no.
of the construction, of the Veranda Townhouse
So it
and
was
the Wise
something
Road.
different that happened
Yes.
that year? Okay.
After COVID, we also saw a drastic influx at the beginning of this year where we're processing twice as many permits for smaller projects as well. So construction is up.
Wow.
Plan reviews are up. That's been seen in 2021. We are estimating a record year.
I think we're trying to be conservative and not necessarily expect that will continue. We hope, but into the next year.
Our projection for next year would be more in line with what we've seen historically.
Okay. All right. Makes sense.
Next is just the charts of the summary of the revenue of the general fund. This is just the charts of all the revenues in it. Next is the general fund expenditures. Total projected fiscal year 2022 equals to $50,213.
How about 50 million?
50 million.
$50,048,213.
I want the leftover.
That consists of $28,552,449 on personnel, $1,092,675 in commodities, $10,658,869 in contractual services, $9,744,220 in transfer out for capital. That's $6 million of the that $6 million is for the fire station number 16 construction, which is we decided that we're going to take that out from the general fund balance. This is just the same as this is just based on what actual and from 2018 to 2022, and what is budgeted is the same as I discussed earlier. This is the expenditure charts. What consists of that amount? This is based on by department. So as you can see, Billy's board is 0.73% of the $50 million budget. So highest one is the police department, 32.12%. Next is the interfund transfer of 19.47%. Next, it will be the department highlights.
Thank you.
Thank you, Remy.
So expenditures are consistent, and we just jumped all over those, right?
Well, you're going to hear more detail now.
Okay.
All right, good evening. Welcome
evening.
to the best department in the village. Sorry.
Don't ask my wife with all the ducks flying off of Walnut Street.
Don't apologize.
So I'm going to move kind of quickly and hit the highlights. Very, very much the operating budget of
What
the
page?
Public Works Department. I'll get right to that. The operating department, let's jump to page 143.
Thank you.
So I'll just go right there.
You said 143, correct?
Yes, page 143, that is we're starting with the Veterans Committee.
Double it.
I'm sorry, sir? So we have, in the Veterans Committee, we're making a request to add some additional funding. There has been a project that the Veterans Committee has wanted to do for a couple of years. It is a flag project where we will take approximately 3x5 flags and line the front of the Village Hall entryway and the front of the village on certain patriotic holidays throughout the year. Might be Veterans Day or Memorial Day or 4th of July. This has been done in some other communities. This is a request from the Veterans Committee. They think it would really help raise awareness. So that is an increase of $7,700. Of that $7,700, that also includes the purchasing of small flags to hand out at village events. That is something that a previous trustee used to absorb. So it's a great program. We hand out a lot of them. We just added that to the budget.
Great program.
So next is page 195, which is Public Works Admin. And I'm going to move very quickly through these because when we're not talking about capital in Public Works, things tend to be very similar. In our admin budget, for example, we're 0.12% up. We're going to add about $212 next year. So other than that, it's very similar. That's not going to be true through all of them, just so you know. The street budget is next. That is on page 201. That is a 0.3% decrease, a decrease of $5,500. What happens is there's lots of things like commodities and professional services and lots of things that appear in these budgets. This is a $1.7 million budget. However, as a component of this, the large part or the absolute lion's share comes from sort of a rebalancing of different things. In this case, it's state retirement. So there was a modification of how all of that works. State retirement went down. There is, of course, a staff increase, pay increase. There are different things like that, but this was absorbed within that because of the state retirement decrease that I'm sure Barry could go into. But for the street department, it'll be a $5,500 decrease next year. Now this is where it gets interesting. We're moving into the forestry division, which is page 205. We are requesting an additional staff person next year. The forestry division has been pushed for quite a while, but with the addition in particular of the Ontarioville Plaza and Park, it's absolutely pushed us over the edge. We have a lot of areas to maintain. We try to make them look beautiful. And this year, we feel very confident in making that request to the village board. Now, I say that it was the Ontarioville Park that sort of pushed us over the edge, and it was. But this person works as part of a team. The streets and the forestry division are really one division that work together. We have area experts in each of them. So we have people that are predominantly in forestry, but those people will also work in street patching. We also have people that are predominantly in streets, and they might be an expert in street patching, but they're also going to work in brush pickup, and they could work in tree removals, and they could work in tree trimming. So it's not necessarily that we would hire one person and stick them in Ontarioville Park and say, don't ever leave. It's that this person would be added to the mix. So today, for example, we were working in Ontarioville Park. We had 5 people there. We had, better than half of the street and forestry department together, what I just refer to as the street department usually, or street division. So it would be one person that would be added to the whole mixture of FTEs that would work all throughout the village. However, I've got a policy question that I want to ask. And this one is something that I think is very timely, particularly related to strategic planning that we just had. Last year, I'm going to jump in the Wayback Machine here for a second, and we're going to go back to the COVID year, the lost year. During the lost year, we did not perform, we performed 3 brush pickups per year, in April, in July, and then in October. We do that 3 times a year. In the lost year, 2020, we did not do the July brush pickup. Brush pickup takes approximately a month. By the time you add a little bit of rain in and a little bit of extra projects, it basically takes us 4 weeks to go from the north to the south side of town picking up all of the brush. I'm requesting the consideration that in 2022, we do not pick up the July cycle of brush, that we go from 3 to 2 brush pickups annually. And during the July cycle, it would give us the opportunity to focus exclusively on our street patching program. Right now, we put our street patching program off.
Yes.
I'll stop now. Right now, we do that program typically in September and into October. We just recently actually last week, we finished it for the year. This year it tends to rain a lot more. If there was something that we really, or my big takeaway from the study that was performed in the strategic plan by NIU CGS, Center for Governmental Studies, it's that people really want roadways repaired. That's very much a focus. People want that. We understand that. We've been hearing it for years. We've been trying to do different things for years. We were very fortunate. I believe this is our 3rd or possibly our 4th year that we have had this enhanced patching program. And it's a great program. So just so you're aware, that's the program where we cut 6 feet typically out of the sides of the roadway. That's a patching program. That's not resurfacing. It's patching. But it is the highest end patching you can do. And it lasts much longer, and it's much more effective in extending the life of the roadway. So what I'm proposing and requesting of the board for consideration is that we go to 2 times brush pickup, and brush pickup is is a program that people like.
Yeah.
They really do. I
You
mean,
know what though, TJ? I mean, most of us do that, I'm a gardener, so early spring and late fall. You do your late bush, and in the middle, we kind of tend not to touch
You get a lot for
things.
July?
no, we do. We do.
You do?
Yeah, because
Legitimately,
you
we
get all
do.
the spring storm damage. You get all the damage, the spring storm damage, the branches that are down from the May and June storms, rains that come through. So I would imagine, I know at least for me personally, as speaking as a resident, I usually have a pile of stuff out there, at all 3 pickups. And so I'm just trying to imagine where I'm not able to place that out on the curb, what would I do with all of those branches for the, that for the summer? They're going to clog up my yard or in the side of the house. And I think what people might end up doing, which means we'll have to coordinate with other departments, is piling that stuff on the side of the house, on the side of the garage, and doing other things. And certainly then we don't want them to start getting tickets, for having brush, that's not
But
properly
isn't there
stored.
the bags?
Well, I have an imperfect solution for you, but I legitimately imperfect.
Yeah.
Is every week in the summer, you have brush pickup. Now, it's a stickered brush pickup, and it's a little bit more circumscribed in that there are length requirements and weight requirements, but you can put yard waste out. Limbs do qualify up to a certain size and different things like that. There are criteria. It is yard waste. It can be taken by our waste
You mean
hauler.
with the group stickers?
What's that?
With the group stickers?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So there is an imperfect solution. We would continue to have our earlier pickup. We would continue to have our later pickup. We would have options in between.
Could we expand?
I think-
Could we then expand what's available to be put out for that period of time for the group pickup on the weekends, on the Friday morning when they come and do the run, so that there are no limitations as to how much can be put out or the size of the branches? Because I know that there are those restrictions on what you can put out.
That's contractually regulated. So at this time, no. When rebidding time comes, then it's up to us.
So I think what we're saying is we don't have the staffing capacity to do both. So we're asking the board to choose, which is the higher priority this year. TJ's found a way to add additional manpower and hours with the equipment we have for the same cost as those individuals would work on patching versus this pickup. And if you choose to have 3 and you want to continue that, we'll do as much as we can with the patching in the year and as we've done in the past. And as you know, we have an enhanced street program this year, but we just need to know now as we go into this budget period and this time, we're just seeking your.
I'm just leery when you take away a service that people have been relying on for years. Then
And I think that
it's
what
not
we
there.
found, though, is we're comfortable recommending this or asking this question, because even with COVID, when everyone was home and had a lot more time to work on their yards and everything, we were able to accommodate the resident with the spring and the fall without the July, because we didn't have the July pickup.
So during the last year, what
Well,
we did, because we have a lot of gardeners in that block where I live, we piled on the side, but we also learned that it's 2 inches, and it can't be very, thick. So we piled on the side for the fall pickup or the next pickup, but we did use the bags.
Yeah.
And so I have quite a few of them that are like master gardeners in that area, and that's what we did.
And if I can suggest as part of this, this is not necessarily a permanent change.
Right, that was.
Now
was
that
my
being
next-
said, roads take time. And I 1 year probably, I mean, unless there's just absolute, everybody hates it, then maybe it's just 1 year. It would probably be something, think of it more as maybe a 5-year change, or think about maybe it in 5-year increments. But it is not something that has to be permanent. So I don't think we have to have an answer tonight.
Well, it would help.
It actually would help.
So
I like
can
to
I
listen
get
to
a
the
sense
residents.
of who would be in favor of this? Because it's
Well,
not an
it's-
ordinance change, it's an operations change.
I'd also like to say, in reference to Trustee Porter's initiative, we had a storm, and it took down a lot of branches, and Public Works spent a week driving around town picking all those up, because we had a follow-up following a storm. And those are pop-ups. And
Yes,
some
sir.
storms are worse than others, so we all pitch in. I drive to town, and I call Joe. I say, you got to check this street out. So we do have those areas, and it's helpful. Trustees can help with that. If we have a storm and there's trees there, we can get out real quick and pick those up.
So if we do have one, because we lost branches and all that, and we just got out there, we got rid of it. But if we do have those larger branches, residents can still call, right? To say, hey, there's branches in the middle of the road.
Well, I guess if it's in the middle of the road or it's
Or-
in the parkway or something, and it's from our tree, we'll come pick it up,
Yeah, if it's
correct?
those trees.
I think we're.
If
I'm
it's
talking
pilot
about
here.
the trees outside on the skirt, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's our tree,
Yeah.
it is our responsibility, 365. We take care of that.
I think the caution is, and what we've experienced is, there may be a storm in town and everybody wants the branches picked up that next day or that night, and it may not happen that night. I mean, TJ's gonna have to balance everything that's going on. It may be a day or then a couple days after, just depending, but we'll do our best to get out there. If it's a major storm and there's major branches and stuff out. If it's just slight wind and you have branches in your yard it's gonna be spring or fall, or bags, or call a landscaper to come pick them up or something like that.
Given the condition of our roads, I think we ought to try it for a year with respect to Trustee Porter's concerns.
Okay, it's 7:20, go fast.
Next is,
So are we deciding on it now?
I would like to decide, yes.
Is there any objection to that?
No, but, so if we do get rid of the summer one, can we then communicate to the community all the different options that they have?
Absolutely.
But also, I guess, communicate to our Public Works Department that they may be visiting streets more often because of
But that's not.
storms or this.
yeah, I
Well, I'm worried about just a lapse in service. So if we have all these options, Can we just make sure that?
We can make sure that people understand their options. And when a significant storm comes through town, that's when we go up, but it's not every storm. It might not even be once a year that we have a storm of such significance. We had one 4 or 5 years ago that took out a lot of trees, and that one was huge. We did another 2 or 3 weeks. This year we did 1 week, or I think it was 3 or 4 days. But generally speaking, without that, it would just be in the spring and in the fall. Because it's just simply a matter of balancing your hours. I have so many people, which means so many hours, and my request is that I move just some of those hours more towards street work, at least in the next year, if not for a few years, rather than on the brush side. And it's a balancing. This is
So-
really what it is.
So am I hearing okay for this year?
Yeah,
I think you're gonna get pushback from residents. but
Guaranteed.
it-
I
I think
so
so
as
too.
well.
Yeah.
I think
I
will.
think we have to articulate the reason why, too.
Yeah, and if
Yes.
you
So,
put
yes.
down on there that you're doing this for the streets, and
Yes.
if you use the highlight or whatever, and you let them to understand that, that will help.
Can you wait on your last one till the end to see if we have time on the water meter update?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very quick with that, incredibly quick.
Well, but let's just wait till the water section. of it.
Absolutely. Facilities on page 209, there's actually, again, this is not a huge budget, there's an increase of 39,000 in here. Almost all of that is
Sorry,
regulated
page
again.
39?
I'm sorry, page 209.
Oh, thank you.
There's a 6% increase, which is $39,000 approximately. That's all related to employee insurance, a rebalancing of everything. Everything gets sort of rebalanced every year based on the costs. Most of it is in insurance and Social Security. A little bit of it is also in part-time salaries. We have part-time employees.
Personnel costs.
I'm sorry?
Personnel costs.
Personnel costs. What did I say?
They are kind of lumped
Oh,
in and they
okay.
shift from.
TJ, I had a specific question, I mean, since we're trying to speed through this, can I just, I was looking through it, and item number 017, the MWRD fields,
Yes.
and I saw that there was an increase in that expenditure to $1,548,025.
Yes, sir.
And I was looking for an explanation as to what that is, what makes that up.
The village has been pursuing over the course of several years, through several phases, an improvement to the sports complex, the Hanover Park Sports Complex. MWRD Fields is what it used to be called. And we've received a grant through the DCEO. And this is the final phase of the project with the money we've saved up and the grant money, the DCEO money, to do the final phase at the sports complex next calendar year.
Okay,
The
so
revenue's in there as well.
Pardon
On the revenue side is the revenue of the grant, and this is the expenditure side.
Okay, so it's in the revenue
Yes.
side from the grant?
Yes.
The grant
Yes, sir.
money. Okay,
Yes.
so it's not coming out of the fund?
No.
No, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Well,
Well, I mean, some of it is, but we've been saving
Yeah,
for
Yeah, I
that.
mean, yeah,
But it's not like
not-
general fund being transferred in or anything.
right.
Yeah.
and Remy will review the MWRD one later in the other funds.
All right, on page 213, we have the village's fleet division. This is up $9,180, $84. It's up about 1%. In this case, that's all just the staff increase. Everything else is really pretty much the same. Next is on page 218, which is the engineering division.
18,
218.
okay.
And that's an increase of about 3%, which is $15,000. Again, mostly personnel-related costs. However, there are some additional costs for some education for staff. There's a little bit of extra money for hiring outside consultants. And as well as we're adding a maintenance agreement on a plotter, a giant printer that we have. And that is all that I have. Let me make sure that I did that right, though.
So you're not going over the water meter project?
We will at the end.
I will do that later.
We will at the end?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, TJ.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So mine will be much longer than TJ's.
It will or it won't?
If anybody needs a break, now's a good time. So it's, the IT budget expenses are on page 169 of the budget book. So there is an increase of $71,377 to the budget. That's about 4.9%. It's mainly due to the contributions to the IT Equipment Replacement Fund, which I went over during the capital meetings. Slight increase in personnel costs. I've done, if you look at it in detail, I've done some work on reducing other areas of the IT budget to limit the increase overall.
So we were short dollars, and we had to vote recently to buy PCs or something that wasn't covered by your IT budget?
No, the network access switches came in over budget to
Oh.
replace all of them, so that I didn't have, I didn't originally I intended to budget half of the switch replacement this year, half next year. It came in 13,000 over budget, so we did them all this year, and we're not having a $50,000 expense next year for the other half.
And that's this year's budget, not this
Yes,
next
21.
budget.
Okay.
We did it this year.
Oh,
So I borrowed from the PC replacements, which it works out well because I probably wouldn't have used that money this year anyway on PC replacements.
okay, got it.
Okay?
That's what we just talked about, right? The previous
capital.
board meeting?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Any questions? That's all I have to give.
That's all you have?
Yes.
Oh,
All
okay,
right.
no. Thank you.
Scared us for no reason.
Poor TJ, he gets such
Good evening.
Good evening.
I will
Yes, it
try to
is.
top that. I'm going to start with CIDC, and if you turn to page 134, we'll go through that budget. Happy to report that we have no change in the budget plan for 2022.
Thank you.
This will still allow us to do our three events that we normally do, which will be the MLK Build-Up, the Stakeholders Event, and the Community Leaders Reception. Any questions on that? Okay, going on to the HR budget then, that starts on page 165. And I'm very happy to report that the budget is decreased in 2022 by $14,551, which is a 2.64% decrease. A couple of highlights I'd like to point out. If you look at the part-time salaries, we are looking at increasing by $4,500 for an HR intern. And I got that from a cost savings that we're going to switch our EAP vendor, which will save us $5,600, and that will go into effect January 1st. Our HR intern will be tasked with hiring all of the summer laborers, and we would have them for 12 weeks. And I think it's a good project that one can concentrate on, and hopefully it would be a good resume builder for an HR intern.
I've been encouraging that for some time, our summer interns, and I know U46 has been very supportive in Bartlett with its summer interns, so I'm glad to see us moving that direction.
Good. A couple of other things are, our budget stays pretty static as far as items go. We just look at for potential increases and so forth. Two of the variable pieces really are consulting services and medical examinations. So I'd just like to point your attention to 403, 461 consulting services. There are a bunch of line items that go into this, but the biggest variables are that this year in 2021, we have two promotional tests, one for police sergeants and one is for fire lieutenants. That list is good for 2 years. So next year, we don't have any promotional tests, which is one of the reasons for the decrease. That EAP vendor switch also falls under the consulting services as well. And then medical exams, you notice that it increased. There's two factors that went into this. One is that our firefighters do they have the ability to go to medical exams, and that number changes from year to year as far as every 3 years. And we had 23 firefighters do a physical exam this year. Next year, it goes up to 34. And then we also had to replace AMITA, which at the beginning of this year, they went out of the business of occupational health, and they were the cheapest provider, not the greatest service, but the cheapest provider. And so we budgeted on AMITA's dollars, and we are now working with Edward Elmhurst for the fire department, and we're working with Physicians Immediate Care for the rest of the village.
Barry, I have it on pretty good authority that OSHA is going to be moving from a recommendation on mandates, vaccine recommendations to a mandate, and that's going to be coming down. How will that affect your budget if we have to start providing? I think the option is either mandates or some type of regular testing. And how will you fit that into your budget if we have to go through some regularly scheduled testing of employees who may object to the vaccine mandate, but they're going to have to do one or the other? And like I said, I pretty good authority that mandate's going to be coming down from OSHA pretty soon.
Well, I have not heard that through any of our partners, including Clark Baird Smith or Appellera or SHRM or any organization like that. So that's not something that I have factored in. And whether it will have to be employer paid or not, that would be to be determined.
Yeah, okay.
Can we explore factoring that in? You're talking about COVID, right? Yeah. Can we explore factoring that in?
To mandate COVID testing? Or
No,
COVID,
the cost.
immunizations?
Just the cost. I'm just thinking about COVID costs, just in general, whether it's testing, whether it's associated with the mandate. I think it's likely that we will still also have COVID next year as well, so any of the costs associated with that,
I could certainly look into that, yes.
yeah.
Well, hopefully there's revenue that comes with a mandate, and I would have that expectation. It's nice to mandate something, but you've got to have the ability to, to pay that. I've heard a couple things that there may be some revenue associated with that, so we'll see.
Any other questions?
And then, yeah, and just a follow-up, so we haven't had any type of cost increases because of COVID in terms of care?
Not that we would,
HR-related?
not that we
That's
would
not
pay.
specific to COVID, no.
Nothing specific to COVID? We've
No.
had no increases?
No.
We had COVID costs, I think I read that in the beginning.
Well,
But that
if you
doesn't
see in
follow.
the budget, there was a line item for COVID costs, but it was for last year. So when we were shut down, the additional IT support
Oh.
and cleaning and all of those are not in this year's budget. I mean, we're cleaning, it's not like we're not, but we purchased all of these dividers and all of that. There was on the revenue side a reimbursement from FEMA that Remy spoke to, and some other money, the funds from the CARES Act and all of that, but we don't anticipate this year.
But you'll look into what trustee Porter was saying, the OSHA and,
I'll
Yeah,
see
do
if
you
I
want-
can give
maybe
you
just
some more information.
preparing for that.
On where I'm getting that, and I'll forward it to you. One of the doctors who helped develop the Moderna vaccine and is part of the president's COVID advisory panel, and is working with OSHA. I know someone that is involved with them on one of the other boards that I sit on, and they advised us at our last board meeting that this mandate is coming. So I'll see if I can get some more information to you and bring you up to date on it.
Yeah, we have it for fire, and we've implemented it for fire, so, right? Yeah. But we have not heard about it for any other employee group.
What's employee recognition? Is that the activities that we do, or
Right, so like the picnic, this, right.
how many do we do a year?
There's generally 3 events that we do. One is the employee luncheon. It's employee recognition celebration. The other is a barbecue or a cookout, employee picnic. And then
Yeah.
the third is a holiday event. Also, what falls under there are retirement parties, and they get to choose a gift on their way out, so forth in the catalog. So that's all included in recognition as well.
Thank you.
So that would fluctuate depending on how many people retire
Are those
each
all
year.
on site? You do
Yeah.
all those activities
Yes.
on site?
Yes.
Any other
Okay.
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barry.
Do we need a 5-minute break before the fire department starts?
Pardon me?
Do we need a 5-minute break?
I don't know. That's up to you. We're good.
I'm fine.
Okay,
All right.
crank them up.
Eric's going to be fast.
Fire is never fast.
Oh, no, this year.
There's a new chief in town.
That's right. Good evening. All right. We're going to start on page 225. So the fire department is split up into 4 different categories of funding in the regular expenditures. This one is 7,100, which encompasses fire administration. Our total fund this year is going to be decreasing by $33,878. It's 5%. That equates to mostly due to the fact that we have a new chief at different rates, and we're bringing in different personnel. And that's the main change there. Moving on to 7,200, that's going to be on page 231. 231, fire suppression. This is our main operations funding. This pays for the line personnel and our day-to-day costs of the majority of the bulk of what we do. This line is actually increasing by 5%. That's almost all personnel costs. The personnel costs are increasing $344,690, and our other costs, so everything non-personnel, is only going up $6,200, and that's mainly due to one specific item, which is our fees that we are going to pay DUCOM for our dispatching. So that equates to a 5% increase in this fund, but again, most of that is contractual raises. Moving on to 7,300, page 236. 236, inspectional services. This is our portion of the fire department, comes out of this line. Again, this total is decreasing by 3%. A total decrease in the overall line of $22,600. This one's a little bit flipped. Our personnel costs are decreasing by $46,000, but our other costs in the lines are increasing by $23,000, and I'll explain that. The main difference is around that $23,790 is actually an increase based on our need to use Safe Belt for plumbing inspections. When we reorganized the whole division last year, we did hiring at the beginning of the year. It was our intent to attempt to hire a building inspector that was also a licensed plumber to be able to do plumbing inspections. We tried, we recruited, we were unsuccessful, we could not. So that has become more of a line item need for our consulting service for those plumbing inspections. But again, the overall budget is decreasing by 3%.
So Safeco only works in one county, not both?
No, that's for the health inspections. The health inspections are split, only one county for Safe Built, but Safe Built also does all of our plumbing inspections for the entire town, as well as if we need oversight or our overages because of our other inspectors. If we were to have them be sick or we needed a high input of how many inspections we were trying to do, we would use Safe Built for the entire town. And then finally, our fourth and final account, 7,400. This encompasses our non-emergency side, an active 911, or a 911, I'm sorry, page 241. We've also moved expenditures for our emergency management functions that have been moved to the fire department, come out of this line. This line is a total increase of $12,000 overall. That is 10% because the overall total budget for this account is only $133,000. The majority of that is just numerous expenses within our personnel, as well as some things such as replacements and increases in disposable equipment and some other things that our emergency management coordinator will be doing to help planning for disasters and emergencies in the town.
Are we continuing to work towards an ISO 1, or, I mean, that's like every 3 years, right?
Yes.
We came close, but no cigar this time.
3 to 5. We improved our rating this last time that we were assessed. We moved up 4 points, which is significant because the difference between a 2 and a 1 is 10 points. So moving 3 from where we were last time is very significant. So an overview of our whole budget and our goals. One is administratively, that is part of it, is to maintain and increase that ISO 1 certification. That
Sorry, what is IS?
Insurance Services Office, they rate a fire department on both their fire department capabilities, their fire prevention capabilities, and our water department. And then they are bundled together as one rating, and that's used and can be used as an actuarial number to apply insurance for fire for companies and homeowners.
Okay.
It's been used for a long, long time. It's one piece of the puzzle, though. It's not as heavily used as it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago in like that cost savings, but it's a benchmark that we meet, and we want to try to evaluate ourselves as a professional organization. It's one piece of it. So we are at 2, which out of 10 is excellent. It's the top 10% of the whole country, 20% of the whole country. So we were at 2. We want to get to a 1. We are positioning ourselves to implement programs administratively as well as our cost or our reporting software and with our water department to be able to ask for another valuation in 2023. So that's our hope and our goal, that we'll be prepared. And at that time, we do think we can get to an ISO 1.
Okay, very good. And I know I looked at a certification program some time ago, and it almost looked like a goal impossible. Have you looked at that?
It is. I think we can do it. It is very difficult, though. It is. There's very, very few departments that can meet it across the nation.
Okay, thanks.
Overall, though, I just want to just pinpoint a couple of goals of our budget for this next year. So we are going to be implementing our phase 2 of our software reporting, which we just implemented a new software program this year. That's going to increase more next year, which that'll include things like investigations, inventory, automated reporting. But what I'm really happy and excited about is we're going to have like a dashboard where we'll be able to share links to more data real time as it comes and goes. And this will help build that ISO 1 platform, but also be able to integrate through our website and through our social media so that it'll place for residents to see more of what our real services are happening real time. We're really excited about that. That'll be rolled out next year. Another piece is, obviously, we talked about ISO 1. With that is called the Standards of Cover document, which helps with accreditation. So we're beginning that assessment of accreditation model for the village and our fire department, and we'll be looking at that next year extensively. Those are some of the highlights.
Does our enhanced 911 come under this?
So that helps in the ISO scoring when we're rated by our dispatch agency.
So that's really home-oriented. I mean, I can put data into my enhanced 911 to assist, make it more efficient for the fire department. How are our residents responding to that? Do you know, have any idea how many residents are?
That's held at the county level and through DUCOM. I'm not sure exactly. I think that there's also, besides enhanced 911, I think maybe what you're referencing is smart 911, where you voluntarily sign up and you can input your information as to your medical information or information about your home or medications or specifics like that. Smart 911 actually travels with you and your number anywhere across the country as well. So that's part of it. Enhanced 911 is also that ability to know where the call is coming from, and it's changed with cell phones, but it's all part of that same thing that builds a better score for us as a municipality through our services of DUCOM. Absolutely.
Okay, I missed the smart 911.
Yeah.
The system enhanced on me. Okay,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
good.
It's both though. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
Can I answer any other questions?
Do you have 2 other items?
I do, if you want to hear them. So we also are going to, in 7300 for our building department, we're going to be planning on moving to the 2021 ICC codes. They were just implemented and rolled out this year. Those are the building codes that we would assess all building and construction against in the village. We take some time to make sure that they're accurate and that there's feedback from the community and that there are accurate assessing what we want to invoke here in our town. So the 2021 codes, it's very traditional that a year later they'll be implemented. So you'll be seeing that coming before the board as a recommendation, probably 3rd or 4th quarter. And then finally, emergency management, which is that 7400 account. That's our newer position that we started to get, that we had in place this year. Sarah is our emergency management coordinator. She'll be updating extensively our emergency operations plan, and that includes things like recertifying our community as storm ready, also completing a THIRA, which is a threat hazard identification document of what's the largest threat to our community as far as infrastructure or natural disaster and what types of threats and what do we do to prepare, as well as the continuity of government and continuing of operations, which is in the event of a disaster, are we planned, what are we planning for, how will we continue the units of government as well as our infrastructure operations, water, sewer, streets, transportation.
Sarah's still part-time?
Sarah's part-time, yes.
Can I ask on that note? I remember speaking with the former chief, and I asked, when I first met him, what's your ask? And he said, admin. Is that still an issue in your department?
We've had discussions through the budget process. I think that is also, I think to me, it is important to always be evaluating that, and it is a piece potentially of those other administrative functions, such as accreditation and a realignment of duties as we're doing right now. We're still putting feelers out and learning those people with those new positions. We have a new battalion chief, we have a new deputy chief, myself. So we're still in that new phase of analyzation and kind of starting to document what our true needs are. But we've had discussions already at the budget process.
Thank you.
And then just finally, our big piece next year, obviously, it's not to rehash here, but new fire station. So that's a huge undertaking that will be part of that planning throughout the year.
Let's hope the cost of cement doesn't go up.
I just have a quick question on page 231. That's the fire department whole budget, right? The salaries and everything else. Overtime, it's $500,000. Is that something that builds in an expected overtime compensation? So can you explain that as to why?
It is. So the way our staffing model is that we have 11 full-time firefighters that we hire per shift. So there's 33 full-time firefighters that work 3 shifts, right? They rotate 1 on and 2 off. So that's what it takes to hit our minimum manning. Whenever one of those full-time firefighters is off for either vacation or a holiday, or they get what's called a Kelly day or a work reduction day, Federal Labor Standards Act says every 16th shift, they have to be off. They can't work that many hours in a work period. Anytime a full-time firefighter is off, we supplement that by a part-time firefighter is working. Because of injury, but also because of firefighters potentially leaving, but mainly our part-time ranks being dwindled down to such low numbers that we've ever seen historically. When our part-time numbers fluctuate that low, we have to pay overtime for that spot. So that's why that number does fluctuate, but that is usually a direct ratio to how many part-time firefighters we have on roster and are working.
And Barry's working very hard to fill those positions.
It's been a
I
huge
know,
challenge.
That's something I was saying. It just fills up that position, 2 or 3, 4 or 5 people we could hire instead of paying overtime. That's just something that
That's
stood out.
So for
So we're authorized for
25,
25 part-time people,
And
but we
how
have
many-
not been able to, and we have 11?
right now, we're going to be up to 11, but over the last 2 years, they've fluctuated as low as 5 or 6. But to put that into a little bit more perspective, out of 11 full-time spots, if we needed to have full-time firefighters to cover those 11 spots, we would need 14 firefighters per shift for those 14 spots, or those 11 spots. One full-time firefighter with salary and benefits at starting rate is about $110,000 to $120,000 for one firefighter. So you're talking 3 more firefighters per shift, 9 firefighters at $110,000 is more than the overtime budget, significantly more. But it is something we're always evaluating into this new norm of difficulty in finding part-time firefighters. We're one of the few part-time combination departments in the Chicago metro area. It's always been a benefit and a strength of our department. We've always seen it that way. It's a building block. I started as a part-time firefighter, but unfortunately, there's not as much interest in that type of position that we've seen as in the past. So we're doing everything we can to recruit and hire and maintain and keep those ones that we do have.
And the benefit for a part-timer is we train them as if they were a full-timer.
They work as their full-time, right. We train them, we hold them to the same standards, and they work the same
They
types of
probably
shifts.
Leave
And then
us when
other
they find it's
communities want
full-time
them.
job.
What's that?
They probably leave us when they have full-time job opportunities somewhere else.
It's exactly it.
Yeah.
We train them, they usually start with us. It's very difficult to get into the fire service in general, and then they become very highly trained and highly, sought-after candidates at other full-time fire departments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Next is the Finance Department. I will start with my finance highlights. A request for proposal for new auditors went out this week or last week.
Sorry, what page are you on?
A request for proposal for the new auditors.
Are you on a page?
No, this is just a highlight
not
from
on-
the Finance
okay.
Department, page 177 to 189. This is the whole Finance Department budget.
Okay.
A new 3-year contract will be presented to the board on the December meeting. Like I mentioned earlier, our bank services agreement will expire in June 2022. A request for proposal will be posted in our website beginning the second quarter of 2022. A new contract will be presented to the board before the June 2022. The third one will be to continue to obtain the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award that we got for almost 31 years, and the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, which we got for 28 consecutive years, and I wanna do it on a yearly basis. So now to my budget. We start on page 177, which is the administration, 3,100. This is where the finance director, the assistant finance director, and the receptionist expenses goes to. The 3,100 represents an overall increase of $3,714, or 1.87% from 2021 adopted budget. Most of the increase comes from personnel, wages, and insurance, and transportation expense, meetings like conference outside Illinois. Because in 2020, we cannot do it because of COVID. Now that it's open, that we can budget for it to go on a conference outside Illinois. Next, page 181 is collection. This is my lovely 3 ladies who's actually on the front counter helping our customers. Represent a decrease of $8,985, or 4.64% from 2021 adopted budget. The decrease comes from personnel, wages with a different rate for the new employees who retired. Next one is the
How many
page.
employees do you have in finance department now?
I have 10,
10?
yes.
Okay.
Page 185, which is the general accounting, that consists of the accountant, accounts payable, and accounts receivable. Account number 3,300, represent an overall increase of $11,027, or 5.43% for 2021 adopted budget. The major increase is in the collection fee for collection agency who collect unpaid ambulance fee. That's an increase of $5,800. And the bank fees of increase of $600. This is due to a lower rate of investment return. And also an increase in personnel wages and insurance of $3,682, and a 3% increase in auditing services. This is just an estimate because right now we are on request for RFP, so we don't know if we're gonna get a higher rate or lower compared to last year. But to make it safe, we increase at 3%. Next is the administration services, page 187. Represent an overall increase of $57,917, or 4.56% from 2021 adopted budget. The major increase are the estimated yearly intergovernmental risk management agency, known as IRMA contribution for 2022, increase of $50,370, an increase of $5,710 in community support program. That's all my report. Any question?
I have a question. What's 402, 431 uniforms?
Yes. 402, 431, since every department has a uniform, my staff want to have a uniform that has finance department in it.
Oh, T-shirt, like shirts?
T-shirt, shirts,
Oh, okay.
Every year we budget,
Okay, and-
just.
No, I thought they had like special uniforms.
Oh, no,
What's the-
if you check George, he always wear finance department.
Yeah. What's the language proficiency? Is that the phone system?
The language proficiency on the 3,500 is those employees who speak different language that they can take a test and they're gonna receive an extra like $400 or $600 depending on their qualification. That was being given on the November payroll check.
It's a benefit that we receive from employees with their ability to help translate when residents come in, as well as then we give them a stipend for if they pass at a certain level on a test.
How many of those employees do we have?
Barry?
20? With language proficiency? No.
I never discussed the page 189 because there's no budget. This is actually the COVID-19 budget, the COVID-19 expenses that we occurred since COVID. But we don't do budgeted in it, so that's why I didn't present.
The water, I don't know who asked this question to. At the beginning of the presentation, there's a doubling of the water rate from 12 something to
Yes.
12.50 to
That's on the water fund, yes.
25?
Yes, the infrastructure fees, we're recommending to increase it from $12.50 to $25
A month.
a month.
What page is this?
So it's an extra $12.50 a month for the infrastructure. We evaluated comparison with our neighboring communities, as well as we in looking at the water fund and the infrastructure, we spoke during the capital portion of the extensive expenses we are facing for our water system and replacement of water mains. That's what that fee goes, or that amount of funding goes for. So at this point, we think next year that the additional 1-point-some million will help pay for that water main infrastructure replacement program that we're proposing as part of the capital budget versus going out for a bond issue. At some point, we're going to have to talk about how we want to fund our water infrastructure, which is significant dollars as we age as a community. So there's no water rate increase this year. I think we will be proposing a water rate increase next year. How many years? 5 or 6 years? We have not.
7, if this is gonna be.
This will be the 7th year without a water rate increase, but we are recommending that increase to the infrastructure maintenance fee, which goes towards, again, the infrastructure replacement costs that we have.
So just to clarify, each person will see an additional $12.50 on their bill
Correct.
every month?
Every month, except
For
for
how-
seniors.
Yeah,
For how long?
Forever.
Forever.
Forever?
Yes.
Right.
It will be a permanent increase to the, and this is paid by anybody, whether you use water or not. So if it's a vacant household, that household is getting this bill. It's not based on usage, it doesn't go up or down, it's per that home in order to have the service to that home.
And if I may, if you can imagine, now for 7 years, we haven't had a rate increase. With the rate of inflation and construction, our dollars to put in water main, replacement water main shrinks every year. And it's now reaching the point that for us to come in and do roadways, we must replace the water main underneath the roadways. Otherwise, we're going to come in and end up cutting up those roads either when we do replace the main or when we do have water main breaks. So we desperately don't want to cut up brand-new roadways.
What's our water rate per 1,000 gallons, do we know?
It's $9.35 per
Right.
1,000 gallons.
And we're going to have a monthly $25 fee.
We have it monthly, $12.50.
Right, I'm
now.
looking at other neighboring villages, like Schaumburg, it's $8.
Well, we'll show you, because I think it's different between,
Rolling Meadows
you
is-
have that chart, when we discuss the water fund.
I'm just leery about that. We had people having a hard time paying the water bill. Water is just something that it's a basic necessity. We still have people like that. I worry about, and I understand where we're coming with, I know the water issues we've had. I'm just worrying about, wow, we've doubled it. We haven't even gone, you know, a little bit, we're gonna
Well-
double it.
But we haven't increased it at all for several years. So I guess, I mean, that's gonna be your challenge, going forward in the discussion is it better for the resident to have incremental increase? It's a philosophical. Is it better to increase them every year by a small amount so that they can manage the increase from year to year? Or do we wait until we need it and then have an increase at that time, and it might be a little bit more? So we could have increased at $2 or $1
Right.
every year.
Right.
Or do we wait until now when we're at the point where infrastructure improvements need to be made, and then it's a $12.50 increase? But, so that is in the budget, it's $1 million some dollars that's gonna pay for needs that we have, and that is a utility enterprise fund, so it needs to pay for itself. It's not like the general fund where you have all of these other revenue sources.
That addresses a concern that I have about our goal, where we've gone 6 years now without a property tax increase. I have the same concern that we've gone so long without one, that when we finally impose one, we're gonna have to do one at such a level that it's gonna be a shock to our residents as opposed to
You mean
implement-
as a property tax?
Yes,
Yeah.
property, I'm
I
talking about
think-
as a property
Yeah,
tax.
as far as the property tax, I think we have a lot more options, and you heard Remy go through the detail earlier this evening about revenue sources that can fund the general fund.
But how
We don't
sustainable-
have that option in the water fund.
it's our
The
enterprise,
water fund
right.
is water
The
rates.
analogy may be imperfect, but I guess what I'm saying is that how sustainable is it that we can continue to go without those property increases, even with the additional
I think next year you will
revenue
have
sources?
I think we'll talk about it as part of the strategic plan, but most likely you will see some alternatives maybe, but a recommendation next year for a property tax increase. And we'll continue to look for other revenue sources.
Sure.
Because as Remy said, how much for a 1% property tax increase? Do we get 100 and some thousand?
It's like 133,000.
So 133,000, this year, we're proposing getting 130,000 from a push tax. And you could say, don't do the push tax, do a 1% property tax increase. So those are kind of some of the trade-offs that I make a recommendation to you, and you get to weigh and decide.
Yeah, and you know, the push tax is still very, very shaky. in
Yes,
terms
yes,
of-
I understand,
of
and
that
if it doesn't go through and
Yeah.
it doesn't pass, that's 130,000 that we will come from the general fund balance versus in this year's budget or a decrease in some other area
Sure.
in expenditures and stuff. We'd have some flexibility in the budget.
Going back to this water rate, I'd like to hear from the rest of the board, like, are you guys okay with us doubling that? Is
And
that-
that's what I was just gonna say. I think I share Trustee Gutierrez's concerns about an additional $12.50 being added permanently, when 1,000 gallons is like $9 and some change. So we are permanently charging our residents
You have that chart, Remy?
$1,500,
for the
1,500 more
comparison when we
gallons
looked at.
that they might not even be using. I mean,
With the other communities.
So,
so it's gonna be.
How about my suggestion, because we're not on the water fund yet, that we finish the general fund this evening, and that tomorrow we can bring the chart with the comparisons of other communities to you tomorrow.
That's a good idea.
For tomorrow evening.
Thank you, I appreciate that, the chart.
Is that okay, Mayor?
yeah, that's fine.
The chart
Okay.
would be good.
Okay, so,
There's a whole history with our water fund that folks need to understand around how 10 years ago, we used to have a minimum of 12,000 gallons that everybody paid on.
right.
And we
so
went to
we've moved.
2,000 gallons because we felt families could conserve and save some money. And so the $25 per month fee was to cover infrastructure costs. And when we went to monthly, we didn't, we made it $12.50. if we had kept the $25, and, you know,
And we weighed that back and forth on which would be,
it's, you know, I mean, you gotta cover your infrastructure.
So just to clarify, so this fee is to fund our water meter project?
no, it's to fund infrastructure. So the new water main that we talked about putting in, how many miles of water main? In the capital budget, it's several $million that it goes towards paying that, or covering
But
that
we will
cost.
be talking about this in depth tomorrow?
Well, I
When are
will
we
bring
talking
you the
about-
comparison of other communities showing you that how the $25,000, or $25
Giving me a heart
aligns with the other area communities on what they're charging their residents.
Also, sorry to cut you off, go ahead.
But, and then we can revisit, or we can go over the water main capital expenditures that are in the budget that will be covered by this as well. So we can go back and re-review that with you, the recommendation on the water main infrastructure fees that are included in this budget. But if you look at the 10 years, and I don't know that we put that up there for them in the capital, there are significant expenditures coming down for the next 10 years.
No, and I totally understand that, because I've been privy to our lovely water issues. But, and we'll talk about this tomorrow, and so I know that it has to happen. I just, it would have been better if it was incremental. It would have been easier, especially now, in this mid-COVID, post-COVID world we're in. Instead of saying, hey, we're doubling it, we're going to do so much these months, and then the next few months, it's going to get raised during the next year, whatever. So an incremental raise would have been easier for our families.
Well, I think what our thought process is this year we're putting in new water meters. That was covered by a grant revenue,
Right.
a one-time revenue source,
Right.
so we're covering that.
Right.
So this year would be the year to get that additional $1,250 versus doing that in a year where you also have a water rate increase. So this would be the increase for this year. Then next year, you're gonna have most likely a recommendation come before you for a water rate increase. And then, so we're trying to spread it out so that the residents don't get hit with both of those in the same year. I'm not gonna be recommending next year that we go from $25 for an infrastructure fee to $35. That's not intended next year.
So you will be providing us with more information about our neighbors and how they are
Correct.
charging?
Yes. Tomorrow.
I'm
I
just
will,
gonna-
I have a chart, we just don't have it with us.
Yeah, I'm going to be transparent. I'm not for adding an additional $1,250 forever. I mean, I could see X amount of years, but forever, I will be voting against that. So if you could
Well-
provide us some alternatives, I mean, I'm really,
So I think that your decision today isn't forever. I'm just saying that, looking down the pike, I see expenditures that will require a revenue source. The decision you're making in this budget is for this next year. So it doesn't tie your hands for future years. It's saying that next year, the revenue that's in this budget is projected, or is based on a $25 infrastructure fee.
and
Then the next year, you would decide whether if you want to continue that, if you want to take it back down to $1,250, if you want to just leave it the same and not have a water rate increase. But in the end, we all need to figure out where the money's going to come from to pay for that water infrastructure that's in the ground that provides water and sewer to our residents in a safe, efficient manner that's not breaking and there's.
It's not, yeah, it's a scary system right now as it is, so I understand that. I
Actually,
totally-
we're in a better shape than most
I've
communities.
seen it when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Thank you, TJ, for that. And so it does scare me, but it's just the fact that we're doubling it. If it was incremental, I could get there and et cetera. And then have we looked at infrastructure grants for that, for water?
If I can jump into that, infrastructure grants are very often I'll say not available. Now, infrastructure loans are available and and some of them are typically very, very low interest. But because it's an enterprise fund, meaning we charge for it and there's user fees that are involved, grants towards infrastructure are incredibly rare. This year being slightly unusual in that there was money made available for different reasons. Now, just to add on to what Juliana had said, though, this is water main, of course, that we're talking about, but this is also improvements to the sewer treatment plant, which is constantly under regulatory change and will be going forward. So, for example, our UV system is at its end of life. We have a lot of major heavy equipment at our sewer treatment plant that is either at or near the end of its life, and this is the infrastructure fee that pays for both that and the water main. So I can't emphasize that enough, and I guess I would only suggest, Trustee Gutierrez, I know you're focusing on the doubling of it as a, I guess, a rhetorical thing, it's doubled. But it's $12.50, whereas a water rate increase, again, depending on your usage, even a small water rate increase could be significantly more than that if you're a heavy user. Now, it distributes it a little differently, but it is only $12 per month as opposed to, for some people, a water rate increase could be significantly more than that.
How much revenue do you anticipate raising by increasing that rate to $12.50? What is the?
1,514,000.
What line item is that?
1,514,000.
What line item is that? What number? I guess what page?
It doesn't say on the page, but the total on the water side, if you look up on page 348, that's the itemized revenue detail. It should be the 343301 and 343302.
Say the number again?
The account number is 343-301,
Oh, okay.
343-302.
302, tap-on fees?
I just
Page
wanted-
348 of the budget book.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna bring us like 1,571,400 extra revenue if the $25 will be approved.
And just so you can kind of wrap your head around looking a little bit farther in the future, this year, we're fortunate enough to have a $2 million. The mayor worked with Senator Castro to get $4 million grant. We applied $2 million of the grant to the road program and $2 million to water and sewer. Next year, unless that would be great if we got another one, but we're anticipating not having that benefit of that grant next year. And so that's $2 million less of revenue that's going to come into the water fund that we will need to figure out how to replace.
So where does the ARP money factor into all of this?
The ARP, all of the ARP funding was applied to the water meter program because it was one-time money and it went towards a one-time project. So we won't have that water meter project next year, so we applied that to that program.
But,
It was $5 million of revenue and it was a $5 million project.
but the water meter project was something that we budgeted for.
Right, and so when we budgeted and then didn't use it.
Right, so the money that we didn't use.
Went back into the fund balance for this year, but then next year now we are using, again, we haven't had the review here. I would have to go back to the water fund overview.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is, yes, we have this one-time payment of $5 million.
You're
I don't think
significant,
that-
but we're recommending you're significantly increasing your water main work this year. Infrastructure in total, street and water main, if you look and compare this last year to next year, it's significantly increasing because there's a significant need. And so we're doing more streets, we're doing more water main, and so if you look and compare, I think that it was 2 million versus a few years ago to, I don't know how many million this
So then
year
I
that
guess
we're doing.
we can have maybe a deeper discussion about this ARP money, because I would rather that we allocated a portion of this ARP money to this water line project than put an
It's the same-
additional
it's the same
burden
fund.
on our residents. But it's not the same fund because this is money we weren't expecting. This is money from the federal government. We weren't expecting this.
But
So I guess what I'm trying to say is I would like to explore other options because I don't want to put an additional burden on our residents when there doesn't have to be one, when we're trying to fund $1.5 million, right? That's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to get.
Well, I think you
additional
need to look
1.5.
at the whole balance sheet of the water fund and all the expenditures that are coming out and all the sources.
Right, but I
And-
also want to explore other ways that that money can be used without putting an additional burden on our residents.
So if
So
you
I
apply,
understand your
if you,
recommendation. I understand your
Yeah.
recommendation, and it makes sense. Spending $5 million, cost $5 million, but again, that's not really, in my opinion, that's not a people-first mindset, right? We're getting this $5 million because of COVID, because people are suffering, and the list goes on. So can we explore other ways that we can maybe break up this money so we're not trying
Well,
to squeeze out
I guess
another
it,
$1.5 million from our working families, right? We are a community of working
in
families.
the end, it's one of the, it all goes in the same water bucket of revenue. And so if you have less money, if you don't want to do if you want to cut $1 million of revenue out, you need to cut $1 million of expenditures out of the water fund. And where that is going to be is in capital. And so you're going to either reduce you're going to reduce capital someplace. We've already voted, the village has voted and approved a contract, and the water meters have already been committed. So you have that $5 million of expenditure. That's in process going forward. So you'll have to cut it from someplace else, which will most likely be the amount of water mains you can replace next year.
And the problem there is,
And it just kicks it down the road.
we got water mains breaking in the middle of winter because they need to be replaced. And we've got roads on top of those water mains that we're not gonna replace because of we're gonna wait on the water main.
Right, we will
I
not
got a
replace a
gravel street
road
in front
unless
of
we
my
can
house.
replace the water meter at the same time. So, the water main. So, if you come to us and say, we really want this road to be replaced, it's really in bad shape, we'll say, TJ will say, there's water main underneath that needs to be replaced also. And I'm gonna say, well, we don't have enough revenue to cover the replacement of that water main. So thus that street doesn't get replaced. We have to go find a street that doesn't have water main under it to be done instead.
And
So
I
don't
appreciate the explorer kind of
And I don't
perspective.
disagree with you, right? Like, if something needs to get done, if something is exploding, of course, fix it. What I am saying, though, is that, what if we didn't get this $5 million? How are we gonna pay for that? It's almost, from what I'm understanding, it's almost like we have to use this additional ARP money for this project or nothing. And what I'm saying is that this is extra money. Every municipality is getting extra money.
Well,
So this,
I
you
guess
know,
what I would
maybe-
say, I
maybe
guess
your
I would say to you,
recommendation-
I would be recommending a water rate increase this year. I mean, if we didn't get that $5 million of ARP money, and we have the issues we have, and I'm not gonna wait until a water main blows up in order to fix it. We have to replace it when the engineers tell us that it needs to be replaced. And so I would have said to you, here are your possible funding sources. You have this grant. If you don't use the grant, you're going to have a water rate increase. If you don't have a water rate increase, you're going to issue bonds. In order to pay off those bonds, you're going to have to have a revenue source to pay off the bonds. It may be shorter, but it's going to be over a longer period of time. And then I've tried not to do a water bond issue because then you're using funds towards interest and the bond fees and all of that. We can have a discussion about it, but you've got a lot of carrying costs when you issue bonds. And so we've been able to get by without that debt to the village, but we may have to look at that in order to do some of these repairs.
And the bonds end up going on the.
I don't mean to sound dramatic or anything, but it is an issue that unfortunately you as a board have to face for the next 10 years.
Aren't we though above ground in our reserves right now in terms of what our goal per the strategic plan for our reserve funds and where we are? Aren't we?
That's the general fund. This is the water fund, two different funds. They can't be mixed.
And you can't use those
No.
funds for the water?
No.
How come?
It's an enterprise fund and it needs to run like, as they say, like a business. And so
Okay.
you need to generate the revenue in the water fund in order to pay for the
be
water
used
fund
for the water.
system.
Okay.
Well, I guess
Solar-
going back
the
to my
solar fund.
original point, I would just like to see other options. What else we have on the table, what else we can do.
I just
Instead
wanted
of,
to
again,
be,
squeezing our residents for $1.5 million.
Just a quick question, Juliana, the water meter went through recently, right?
It
Where
was
we
approved
allocated?
this year, yeah.
Yeah, after the new trustees.
So what
We
we
were
did
here.
for in this current year's budget, we budgeted the use of fund balance at $5 million and thought that in anticipation that the meter program would be completed this year. It was not completed this year, and so it's bridging two different budget years, but we also received one half, the first payment of the ARP funding, so we applied it to this year's water meter expenses in this year's budget, didn't use fund balance, and we're recommending next year that the other half and the payment we receive next year cover the second portion of that.
So what I'm hearing is just what's coming down, it's already been allocated and done. It's just assigned and water meter needs to be done. So that, we know the money is coming, we still need to have it, but it's already allocated. There has to be some other plan, and what that can look like, we don't know that. And I don't think we could touch the other funds at all whatsoever, so the water fund is where we're stuck with $12.50 increase. So that's, probably we should carry this tomorrow, looking at other villages like we planned, and talk about it
I
a little
would
bit
like
more
to talk
next
about
tomorrow.
this
Yeah, and have a,
Where's,
process.
Remy, what page is the fund balance on?
Page 346,
is that for the general fund?
No,
or
for the water fund.
for the water fund.
So you have, at the end of next year, you will have unrestricted $8.8 million in fund balance.
What page is this?
What page?
What page?
346.
346.
If you look up on fiscal year 2021, our fund balance went down to 4.8 million because of the use of the 5 million for the water meter changed out.
So the 8.8 is with the increase of 1250.
The increase of the
month.
1250
Yes,
plus the
correct.
ARP second payment.
Plus the ARP, okay. Unrestricted, okay. And we can
And
talk about
remember,
it.
I mean, I'd be less nervous if we didn't have a wastewater treatment plant. But anytime something breaks in the wastewater treatment plant or goes wrong in the wastewater treatment plant, it's very expensive.
She hates the plant.
Okay, I
You know, if
agree.
I could not have a
Listen,
plant, it would
I
be great,
agree.
but.
I agree. I've been traumatized by sewage. But I'm just saying, we're saying it's just $12.50. It's just, I work with the families on the other side of that $12.50
Right.
here in Hanover Park. And that's a lot for them. It's $12.50 more that now they have to juggle and struggle. And I know that many of us cannot speak to that because we've never lived that lifestyle, but it means a lot to them. And so I feel if it wasn't, hey, we're doubling, if it was, we're going to go up by 5 or something, maybe I can work around it, but we'll talk about it tomorrow when we look at the other rates. I just want to put that in your heads that there are folks that are still struggling, otherwise I wouldn't have a job.
Well, and to that point, very much so, if you followed at all what's happened down in Harvey and Dixmoor,
Right.
Illinois, that is an example of the infrastructure not being maintained. And those residents are going to pay much more, both in short term and in long term, than having well-maintained, well-considered infrastructure, try to handle,
And I understand that. I just think it is our duty as a village to make it as easy as possible on these families as well.
And I
agree
think
with Trustee
also,
Gutierrez.
it's
Thank
a
you for making
response
that
to.
point.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's also, we need to go back and hear the comments that were made during the citizen survey, which the residents who responded said infrastructure was their number one concern, and the number one, well, streets and water main are kind of go hand in hand. So that was their number one concern, and what they told us should be our number one priority.
And of the money that you are recommending be allocated to this, so we're getting 5.1 million, we're spending 4.9 million, roughly?
Yeah, I
Is that
don't know the exact
Yes.
number.
right?
Right.
So we have 200,000 left?
It's kind of something like that, yes.
And what are we doing with that?
It's going to go to the fund balance.
So what we said during the,
It's going to go to the fund balance of the water sewer fund that we can use for the water main infrastructure, but that's 200,000, just a $200,000. Right now, we are at 3.7 million that we budgeted to do the infrastructure for the water main. And 2 million of that is the 2 million from the Build Illinois grant fund that we don't know if we're gonna get it or not. So if we're not gonna get that, that means we're gonna use 2 million out of the fund balance or don't do anything at all for the water main breaks improvement.
so one of the things we talked
Thank
about
you.
at the board meeting when we talked about the ARP, we said we do have this small amount that's above the cost, or in addition to the cost for the water meters. So while it's going to be deposited into the water fund, we had said, let's go through the strategic planning process. Let's talk, at that time, we were talking about our social services through the police department, and is there some need a small need that we would allocate, we could allocate, and we have that in amount. We're gonna talk about it on November 4th for our community contributions to that, but you could transfer that 200,000 or 100 and some thousand dollars out of, if you didn't use it in the water fund and you applied it somewhere else, you're just gonna end up using more fund balance, and that fund balance is gonna go down in the water fund.
I just want to, before we move on, just want to make this one observation. So in 2022, we're proposing the $12.50 increase in the water bill, is that correct?
Correct.
And then in 2023, we're also suggesting that there's a possibility of there being a water increase, an increase in the rate from the $9.18 that we're at now, or I might be wrong.
$9.35.
35 cents, that there will be an increase in that rate, probably in 2022 or 2023.
Not in 22.
In 2023.
23, 24, 25, somewhere in there, you're gonna have to find additional revenue for the water fund.
And so I guess then I'm looking at the accumulation
Yes.
of
Yes.
Yes.
the water fees within the next 3 to 5 years is going to be substantial. I mean, we're stuck on the $12.50, but when we add in that rate increase,
Which
from-
I'm not proposing yet, and
Yeah, but
we
it's,
will.
but we
well,
all
it's
admit
coming.
that it's coming.
But here,
It's
so
coming.
for example, this year we received $4 million in a grant. we will continue to try to work that. We will try to find additional funding sources, one-time funding, meet with our legislators, try to apply for every grant possible in order to offset the need to do that. And I think that while we haven't had a rate increase for so many years, I think it's because all of you, the mayor, and staff have been very successful in having money, having Hanover Park be the recipient of revenue.
Can I just interject for a little bit? If we can go through this tomorrow with more of a fresh, clear mind, because what Trustee Porter, that's all I've been doing, calculating in my head. Oh my gosh, in the next few years, I'm not going to be able to afford the water here. So if we can either move on, because I know some of us have sitters in the house, so we can
So
move on.
yes, so let's get through community development, the department highlights at
Yeah.
least, and then,
Thank you.
Thank you, Remy.
Thank you.
I wasn't ready for this watering.
My apologies for bringing that up.
No, we would have had it.
No, don't
It would-
apologize.
It's kind of out of order, but that's fine. We need to have that discussion, so.
Hi, Shubra.
Heavy discussion to follow. On a lighter note, sales tax revenue increased this year. EAV has gone up, so our businesses survived, and we got some new businesses, so, yeah.
Handle it.
What page are you?
So what I'll be doing tonight is not only giving you a few highlights for the community development department, but also the 3 or so commissions that we are liaisons to. So in terms of page numbers, we'll be going from the back of the book to the front of the book. So community development, the page is 288. And one of the first things that we are looking to do, the RFP was out, we have a broker marketing it. We are hoping that Hanover Square gets sold. And that is something that the manager and I have been working on. Our broker continues to receive some proposals, and we'll be working through that. But hopefully Hanover Square would be sold, and that'll free up our time a little bit as well. As you know, that we bought the shopping center in 2011, and since the village acquired the center, we have reduced the vacancy from 60% to less than 20. And as you know, we have some good tenants there, and we are still continuing to recruit some more. One of the major things that you would see in our budget is a comprehensive plan update. So that is something that is due. The last time the comprehensive plan was updated was in 2010. And it's a state mandate also that the comprehensive plan needs to be updated every so many years, ideally 5 years, but typically communities don't do it every 5 years, but we are way past due. So one major cost that you would see, because we will have to hire a consultant, our staff is too lean, too small to do this major undertaking. So it's an expected cost of about $150,000. But we will also be applying for grants to hopefully cover some or most of that cost. At this time, I'm not sure what the actual cost may be, but anticipating it to be about $150,000. But we will be applying for a CMAP grant later on this month.
You show that on page 280?
288. So if you look at the comprehensive, so there's a line item for the comprehensive plan update for 115 consulting fees. And hopefully, if we do get a grant through CMAP or RTA, that will free up some money too. Otherwise, the total operating budget for 22, one other thing that I wanted to clarify was that a part of my budget also reflects incentive agreements that the village has with businesses. So when you see the total budget for the department, it includes more than half of it is actually agreements that the village has with different businesses in town. And there's a sales tax sharing that goes on, et cetera. So if you look at the overall total budget, the reason why it is more is because if we get more sales tax from these businesses, we are also giving some of that back. So if you see an increase, it also means that we got more from them, which is a good indicator that they did well. So there's a total increase with the incentive of $1,267,883, which is about 31.84% higher compared to 21, which just means that our businesses did better, and therefore we are sharing a larger share. If you do not include the incentives, the budget only increased by $167,000, which includes that $150,000 for the comp plan that's been budgeted. If you only look at the commodities, my budget actually went down by almost $10,000. We're also putting in a request to hire an intern. We have quite a few developments that we're working on. As you know, I have a very, very small staff, and there are quite a few development proposals that are coming in. We have a few that are already in process, under construction, and then there are some that are coming in for review, development approvals, et cetera. Arby's is proposed for, well, we'll be bringing that to you hopefully soon. The Shell gas station at Lake and Ontarioville, we are seeing plans for that to be redeveloped, and a couple more to be coming in.
Sugar, let me
yes.
stop you while you're talking
Yeah.
about staff and doing the internship. Currently, you have three people working under you in
Yes. Correct.
in the Economic Development
Correct.
Department. I think we've all agreed that one of the ways that we resolve some of our revenue issues in town is the development of more sales tax, taxes from businesses and so forth to alleviate property taxes and some of the other things.
Burdens, yeah.
And so what I have been concerned with since I was the liaison for the Economic Development Department was the inconsistency in the messaging, that the importance of this department doesn't correlate to the attention and the money that we spend on staffing in the department. Mm-hmm. Because to me, it's one of the more, other than services such as police and fire, but it's one of the most important departments that we have, because within it lies the solution to a lot of our revenue problems.
I agree with you.
And let me get there. And you know, what we're trying to do with generating revenue. I know for a fact that you're paid a very handsome salary, but a lot of your time is spent doing administrative duties, things that could be handled by a full-time administrative assistant that could take those things away from you and then allow you to focus more on, I guess what we call in the sales was getting the whales, you know, getting the businesses, getting the type of enterprises that we want in town that would generate the revenue that would help resolve some of the issues that we foresee coming down the road. And so I guess I said all of that to say I would like to ask the board and I would like to ask the village manager to rethink and to re-examine the staffing level of this critically important department in economic development, because I think there's a time when you can be, as the people used to say, pound foolish and penny wise and pound foolish, you know, where we have not given you, in my opinion, now it's my opinion, but as an observation, the staffing in order to go and do what you need to do. I personally know, and I don't want to out you here, but I know you've got a cot in the back. You've got to sleep here, and you gotta have makeup and all of that stuff in the
And
back.
lipos,
because, yeah, you spend a lot of time in that office back there. But I know that a lot of the things that you're doing could be handled more efficiently and more effectively, well, maybe not more effectively, but more efficiently by an administrative assistant or someone that could take some of that responsibility and free you up to do the essential things that are needed to promote the economic vitality of Hannibal Park to the developers and to the business community. So I just want to say that, you know, I think that that's something that we need to take up and we need to consider as we look at it, because I see where we're adding positions in police department, we're adding positions in public works, we're adding positions in all of these other departments. But I think the critical department, we could go without some of those other additions, not saying that they're not necessary, but life would go on. I think we need to really look at increasing the staffing level in the, in your department. And Juliana, I would ask that you would take that under advisement. Let's have a talk about it. Let's discuss it. We're in budget session, and I think that, you know, it's something that I think the board should take up.
Absolutely. We've talked about that before as the liaison on the Economic Development Committee. I see it. I know your car's here very late sometimes, and walking the businesses, and Syed, you know about this too, that we walk the business and talking to folks. We need that extra person. An intern is great,
Well,
but yeah, and it was even when Eileen was here, we still needed someone.
So we can have that discussion, but I did add a economic development intern for the summer. The intent is that it's at a higher rate, so it's not somebody just out of high school, or it's somebody who has skills and qualifications that during the time when they're home from college or after college during those summer months that we're able to get the additional support. There is a full-time administrative assistant in the department, but I will say that part of my recommendation may be a reduction of some of the things that community development does. So if the concern is business support, then maybe there are some things that are being done in community development that would need to be shifted or moved.
Well, let's have that
depending on
discussion.
But, okay. I will say, though, that the two positions that I'm recommending, and the departments can talk about it, and the police department's going to talk about it, are absolutely necessary based on approved programs that the board has put in.
And I didn't mean to cast aspersions on any of those other departments. I was just trying to make a case for,
And this is-
for what's happening.
But this also comes from someone that every week is out there, and you know I do this, Shubra, knocking on businesses. I take my position.
I know, and I'm not
and-
saying that you don't, but
we need, it's
But
overdue.
I wear the hat of the full,
Overall,
for the
right.
operations of this organization. So I guess I would rather hear from the board of what they are not seeing done and what they would like to be seen done or would like to see more of, and then let me work with the organization to determine how that stuff is going to get done.
I like to see more personnel in that department.
Well, that's not.
I would also
that's-
like to
okay,
see more
that-
personnel.
Have we
Anybody else?
replaced Ellen?
Would you like to see more personnel?
That,
we're in the
listen,
process of
that
hiring.
is not the role of the village board. The role of the village board is not to say where there should be more staff and where there shouldn't. The role of the board is for policy and to say what you like and what you don't like and what you'd like to see provided. And it's my job, along with the departments, to determine how that's done. And I don't mean to be so direct, but that's how this organization works.
We've said
And
that.
so.
No,
We've said that, so that's what
absolutely.
we're saying.
Okay.
Let
Okay,
us
so I would like to
come
know.
and give you those specifics in terms of where we think there are gaps.
Yes,
that
I would
staffing-
like that,
That
yes.
staffing changes could address. And then we'll leave it to you to come up with resolutions to that and
Okay.
suggestions as to how to handle that. I totally agree with, with that. But I just want to put it out there that it is a concern, so let's have that discussion.
The good thing is that we are seeing development, but like I said, there is a lot of workload, very
Okay.
skinny staff, appreciate that. but we try to do the best that we can
Absolutely.
with that. That was community development for our EDC, the Economic Development Committee. The budget is on page 154. And we are working on creating a web portal, a web page for economic development. We heard from a lot of businesses that were having a hard time hiring. We also know that our residents are always seeking jobs too. So we are trying to create a portal that would connect the job seekers with the employers. It is, again, one of those things that gets put on the back burner a little bit as we are dealing with more of today's fires. There's a lot of permits that came in this year, and so that has been put on the back burner. The Economic Development Committee would be continuing to hold our business after hours and a few other educational events that we hold for our businesses, and hopefully that will be successful next year as well. This year's event was very successful that we held at the Village Center. Development Commission budget
Before you
is-
go on, Shubha,
Yes.
real quick, I don't know who this goes to, but are we getting tents? Tent?
So we
Not
are
under my budget.
evaluating currently in this year's budget to purchase 2 tents that were similar to the ones that that the police department provided for that event. There were 2 next to each other, but they said police department on them. We are in the process of researching to purchase 2 of those tents without that wording. If we're unable to do that, the other suggestion was some type of flap that could be added to the police department's 2 tents that could be flipped over so that it was neutral.
I didn't mind that it said police department. I just thought, it'd be great if we had those because we want to use that Ontarioville Plaza. It's so awesome. So I'm glad we're looking into it. Thank you.
But we're trying to do it out of this year's budget
Oh.
versus next.
Moving on to Development Commission, page 148. We'll be continuing our training for the commission members. We try to utilize the American Planning Association as much as we can, because that's a national institution that provides the training. And this year, a lot of their conferences were virtual and at a much reduced rate. So our commission members were able to take advantage of that without having to travel and pay for any travel expenses of food or et cetera. So we were able to utilize that. The last one I have is Historic Commission, and the budget is on page 130. They have 2 historic plaques budgeted for next year for a total of $1,200. They are very busy scanning documents and slides and photographs. Poplar Creek Library has been really helpful, and they are providing their services at no cost, but there are some things that they would also need to go to, whether it's a Walgreens or some other organization, to have some of these scanned. So there's a little bit of money budgeted for that, as well as for organizing and preserving the materials. So there's some money in office supplies for that as well, for up $500 or so. That's all I had. Any questions I can answer?
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that a wrap, or we got
Nope, we
PD?
have police is next.
And that's
Police-
it?
Nope. Then the manager's office, then the clerk's office, and then we'll be done with.
We're,
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't hear the 8 o'clock time. Oh, well, that just Sue kind of puts a number, okay. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Police Department budget starts on page 243. The total budget amount for the police department is $15.7 million, and that is spread across 6 cost centers. 243, but I'd have you jump right to 251, if you would. The first cost center is 8100, which is PD administration. That's primarily the chiefs as well as our accreditation and grants manager. And just the money in there just covers training, conferences for all of us. The increase in 8100 is only 2.8% overall. And then once you remove personnel costs, it's actually a decrease of $2,029. So nothing really exciting at all in 8100. 8200, which is on page 257, is our patrol division. That is by far our biggest cost center. That covers all the police officers and CSOs who are on the street. That is 9.18 million. Our total increase in that cost center for this year is just over $12,000 or 0.13%. That is due to some vacancies that are entered in there, that they're at the lowest salary for officers versus some of the higher paid officers. So that's the reason why that number is not a little bit higher. And included in 8,200 really is all of the training, uniforms, and any equipment or supplies that patrol officers or CSOs would need to do their jobs on the street. So again, nothing really exciting in there. I should have prefaced this by saying all of our exciting stuff is in capital, which you guys already heard about a couple of weeks ago. So that's 8,200. Our next cost center is 8,300, which is on page 262, and this covers our investigations unit, which is all of our detectives and our special operations group, or our guys and gals who investigate the drug cases and gang issues. Our total increase in that account is $284,000. I'll talk about that here in a minute, or 13%. And then when you take away personnel costs, it's an increase of about $1,812. So a couple of things that are in that account that are new. One thing is crime mapping. For those of you who've been on the board a while, you know we used to have crime mapping on our website where residents could go on and they could see all the crime, where it's happening in town. They could click on the icon or the emblem and it would give them a little bit of detail about what that crime was. When we went to the new records management system 2 years ago, it took them forever to get an interface going. That interface is now working, so we're hoping to get that up again in the next couple of weeks. But that $12,000 is an annual fee that we pay so that the public can see where crime is occurring in our town. And then on the back end of it, we can do some analysis with that in the police department as far as crime forecasting and stuff like that. So. It is not. It was on there about as of 2 years ago, and then it came down when we went to the new records management system because the interface did not work. But we're ready to get it back up and going again. So residents can go onto our website and they can see all the crime where it's occurring in our community. So. Additionally in there, we've talked a lot about community contributions. I wanted to point out that we do give $4,200 every year to the Cook County Children's Advocacy Center. What this center does is in the event we have a juvenile that is a victim of some type of abuse, whether it be physical or some kind of sexual abuse, juvenile victims have to be interviewed in a very different way. People are trained differently. Police officers don't do that type of interviewing in a police station.
Chief, what page are you on?
I'm sorry, 262. So if we do have a victim that comes in and needs to be interviewed, we'll send the child and their parents down to the Children's Advocacy Center where they have the specialist who is trained to interview children on, as I said, on the abuse case, and then they work with the state's attorney's office who sit in and view the interview, and then they assist us with charging and prosecuting the offenders.
What line is that under?
That would be under memberships.
Oh, and subscriptions? Okay.
Additionally, we have that same service in Cook County, depending where the crime occurs, and there it's called the Dupage Children's Center. Now, what's different there, if we get a crime like that, we give them the whole case. They have investigators down there. They'll investigate the entire case from start to finish, and then they report back to us the status, and they do all the charging and everything. So I wanted to point out those two items. Continuing on, 8,400 social services. We know we got Tricia Rossi. Her budget is flat. There's a slight increase for salary. Everything else in there is flat. That includes our associations, our consulting services, licensing fees, stuff like that. And that was on page 266, I'm sorry. The next cost center is 8,500, which is on page 271. And this is our records division and DUCOM related costs. There is an increase in this cost center of 9.36%, or about $177,000. Primary reason for that, the village manager, we just got done talking about it. We do have the additional position of a property custodian coming on. As the board is aware, we just approved a contract with Axon to implement body cameras. In order to do that, we had to hire a second property custodian just to handle body camera footage. When we talked about body cameras, we discussed how for each hour of body camera footage, in order to go in and do the redaction and blur faces for people that you legally can't show, it takes 3 to 4 hours for somebody to do 1 hour of redaction on a video. So sometimes you could have 2 or 3 officers at a scene. They have to go and do every one of those. So that is the big issue with implementing body camera program that departments are trying to overcome. So that's how we've addressed it by the hiring of that custodian. In addition to that, the custodian will also back up the other property evidence custodian if needed. Now, in order to do that, we did eliminate 2 part-time records aides positions. As I said, we implemented the new records management system about 2 years ago with some of the streamlining and things we're able to do in there. We just didn't see the need for those 2 positions any longer. We felt they could be better served in the property custodian position. So we did that to offset the cost. In addition, 8,500, a new one we have in there is the Ducom radio airtime. We have $12,000 budgeted for that. When I talked during the capital presentation, we talked about that our radios are now outdated. They're no longer being maintained by Motorola. We have $221,000 in capital for that, but they're also charging non-first responders for airtime to use that radio, and it's $12,000. Now, there is some debate going on. We have it in here, but it's not set yet that our CSOs or CEOs aren't first responders. That's still up for debate, and it's being fought at the county level, essentially, and they got the state's attorney looking into it to render a decision whether to consider first responders. So it's in there, but it may come out. Additionally, we have in 8,500.
Chief, first responders for CSOs and whatnot, the cost of those radios, and if we need them for our folks, we need to address that. And I spoke to that at Ducom, I don't know, what was it, Wednesday morning, that we need to be a little more sensitive to those of us that need to work together, because that's how we went to Motorola's 10 years ago. Police and fire weren't talking to one another. We now have CSOs and we have support that we need when we need it.
Yeah.
And the sensitivity is greater. So if there's a reduced rate or something, we really have to, Erica, we need to hear this too. You know, we need to really look at the cost of those radios. And ETSB has got to help us with that. And I'm glad to hear that state's attorney is on board with that. He can hopefully understand the situation. We need to convey that to him as our advocate.
Yeah. One other item under 8,500 I'd like to point out is we do pay a subscription fee or monitoring fee for the Village Emergency Alert Notification System. Those of you that have been on the board for a little bit know we invested a significant amount of money on our notification system. You see the blue boxes on the wall here. In the event of a violent intruder or active shooter, we activate those and it goes right to Ducom. And there's a lot of other state-of-the-art things involved in that, which I prefer not to talk about in an open meeting, but you know, I think we're the only municipality that has a system like that. You see it in a lot of the school districts, but not in any municipality. So we do pay a $6,000 fee annually for the monitoring and dispatching in the event that was activated.
Good news.
Continuing on, 8,700 is code enforcement. Again, nothing really new there. That's just for supplies, memberships, small increase in salaries, and actually a $60 decrease outside of personnel costs. So that's it as far as police department cost centers. Sister cities, the budget is identical to the 2021 budget. We made some small changes in the area of the special events. The Black History Month event is now going to be a Juneteenth event. Included in, I'm sorry. You know, I didn't write that one down.
It's at the beginning. It's under boards, clerks, committees, commissions.
Got me on the one.
Who's first to get there? It's on page 138.
Sure. So as I said, it's identical to the 2021 approved budget. There's some association dues for the Sister Cities International and the State Association. 2 events, special events, as I said, Juneteenth and a Mexican American Heritage event. And then there is some money in there again for scholarships for Cape Coast as well as Valparaiso. And that's all I have on Sister Cities and Police Department, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you want to go before me? Go ahead.
What page?
So it's 9 o'clock right now. How long are we planning to be here?
I just wanted to go, how fast she can go, and I
I'm
have
going
2
really
items
fast.
to thing, and then we'll be done. Then we'll be done with
Go,
the
MC, go.
general
Please
fund.
give us some notice about this. 2 hours, that's what anticipated, 8 o'clock supposed to finish. We are 1 hour more right now. And we have time tomorrow too, and we are 5:30 to now 9 o'clock tomorrow again. I don't know, it's just, there has to be some time management here.
Alrighty, so I'm on 118. My budget is, the only increase is $2,620. Mine is substantially smaller than a lot of the ones that you see. I'm proposing an increase of 1.95% for our budget. And the big increases that I have is the municipal clerks meetings for Dupage and Cook County. Our previous clerk didn't attend all of those, so she didn't budget for those, but I would like to be in them just to get to know my first couple of years, the other municipalities, and build that communication with them. So I increased that a bit. Also, we are bringing back our STARS program, which is our art program where the art teachers from the 11 schools in the area have the opportunity to bring their artwork here to Village Hall. So I'm proposing an increase of just under $200 for that. And then the last big increase I have is for these beautiful matte frames that we have. We only order these every 4 or 5 years. The whole village uses them. We just order them in bulk. It is a $1,200 one-time fee every 4 or 5 years, just depending on our needs when we need them. And we're just starting to run low, so we don't want to run out of them for events that we might need them. And that is all I have.
Thank you.
I think we're done.
You think we're done? You were the last one.
There really isn't anything in the manager's office or the elected officials' budget that's different or changing.
Okay.
We're having a pet event in the spring for special events.
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
We're having a pet event, a pet special event in the spring. We added an event, a
For
special
all
event.
dogs that are not
When will
white.
we have this information for this pet event?
It'll be around the spring, it's an egg roll type,
You're gonna have
pet egg roll.
Are we going to have a meeting about this? This is important.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Deputy Village Manager Webb is not here, so when he's here, he will.
We are recessing until,
No, you're
tomorrow.
ending, and then we have a new meeting tomorrow.
Tomorrow we'll be refreshed and clear-minded, and then we can have information on the dogs event.
Happy conversation.
Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
They're doing theirs, I believe, in the fall. Yeah, right, right.
Mayor,